Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for October 2nd, 2024. We're doing our Week 5 NFL picks against the spread. Before we intro our guests for tonight, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. As you can see, we have a ton of t-shirts here in the merch store, all I'll say like cheaply priced, and it's great. Just great t-shirts that you can wear for years, as Cassandra has pointed out recently. As you guys know, I wear all this stuff. This is basically my entire wardrobe, except for like 3 or 4 shirts, and my wife makes fun of me for it. So you can get these to help support the show. Also, please consider super chats, super stickers. That really helps us out because YouTube ads pay absolutely nothing. Not absolutely nothing, maybe like 25 cents or 50 cents. So I'd have better success going out and like looking for change. So it's John Sanders, Slew. You guys have been so awesome recently with contributions. Cam Meek and Eagle, Stuart Griffin, Andrew Z. And before that, we had Jerem DeGeneron, Kevin Kovac. You guys have been so great. So any further contributions would be really appreciated. Also, you can go to Amazon, buy my 3 books. My most recent book is Jerks of the College Years, where I make fun of people at Penn State. As you can see, I ran into some very strange people here. So Jerks of the College Years is my most recent one. There was also How the 2020 MVP Was Stolen. This is an expose I wrote a few years ago. As you guys might know, Aaron Rodgers won the 2020 MVP, but Brett Favre tried to sabotage him that year. I wrote all about that, and you can read it here. So without further ado, we welcome in Evan Daniel, his second appearance on the show. His first, I believe, was like week 6 last year. So he's making his triumphant return here. Evan, how's it going? And do you want to offer a brief introduction?
Hi, Walt. Thanks for having me back. Really appreciate it. Last year was a lot of fun. I think we did pretty well that week. So I appreciate the invitation to return. Just a brief introduction. I've been a Vegas contest player for about 14 years, since 2010 or 11. A couple of successful years in the Super Contest. Circa Millions we haven't cashed yet in the Circa Millions, although a couple of years ago I finished 10th in the Survivor. Of course, if you know Survivor, Circa Survivor, it's winner take all, so you get $0 for finishing in 10th place. So very, very close. Looking forward to getting back into that run next year. Already knocked out this year. Thank you, Las Vegas Raiders, 2 weeks ago not showing up to the Panthers. So we're out of Survivor. Now we get to strictly focus on picking 5 games each week against the spread, both with the Circa lines that come out on Thursday and Super Contest on Wednesday. Walt and I met through our mutual proxy, the wonderful Andy Isco. So that's nice. Thank you, Andy. Shout out to Andy Isco for making that connection. So small world out there. I've been looking and following Walter's previews for a long time. I find them very, very valuable in my summer homework, reviewing the NFL season, previewing the NFL season using Walter's information. And to be able to be introduced through our mutual proxy was pretty cool. And last year we had a good time. So thanks for having me back, and looking forward to going through the games.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. You gave us some great plays last year. I remember you were talking about the Jets win over at like week 6 last year, and it hit it. So yeah, so looking forward to doing the show with you again. So
I love the in season.
Yeah.
And FanDuel has really soft lines. You know, some of the other books also have season long win totals that change nightly. And I got one the other night, which moved already by Monday morning. So we can maybe talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, that Jets, I remember last year, the week before, they played the Eagles, and they upset the Eagles that week. And they had won a couple of games. And I don't remember what the over was, but 2 weeks later I hedged and took the under. And then we middled the Jets season win total last year. So throughout the season, there's a lot of opportunity. If you look at the schedule in advance and you see teams that have tough slates, tough schedules coming up, you can take advantage going over, expecting a couple of wins, and then maybe playing that back, giving yourself a 1 or 2 game middle. So there's a couple of teams that I'm looking at now that I've taken each week throughout the season thus far that we can talk about as we get to them.
Nice. Look forward to that. Here's a comment saying Andy is the man. That is true. Andy's going to be on the show on Thursday after the Thursday night game. So looking forward to that as well.
That's great. I can't wait.
Yeah. Zach Charbonnet sucks and not in the ballpark of Kenneth Walker. Yeah, Walker burned us last night. Had the under on the Kenneth Walker rushing yards, and it looked great when he had 6 rushing yards at halftime. and then he had like 3 20-yard runs in the second half. So that was not great. We lost that one. But let's get to the Week 5 NFL games. Buccaneers at Falcons. I imagine you're not going to put this one on the card because per the contest rules, you have to submit this early, which I don't know. I feel like you should be able to change, but like it's 2024. I feel like why can't you change now? But anyway, I will not be putting this on the card. I will not be betting this one either. Don't really see much of an opportunity here. Although I think I'm leaning toward Tampa here. Atlanta is going to be without 2 offensive linemen. I assume once again, Caleb McGarry, Drew Dahlman, and the offense didn't look good last week. No, they won, but they had 2 defensive or special team touchdowns. Without those, I feel like they would have gotten blown out. So I feel like this is a misleading record that the Falcons have here. 2-2. I feel like they should be 1-3. Tampa bounced back nicely from their loss to Denver, albeit against an Eagles team that was pretty banged up. So I'm not a fan of either of these teams. Are you playing this game?
No. So like you said, I never even consider playing a Thursday game from a contest perspective because the Vegas contest rules are you have to submit all 5 picks by Thursday. And that's putting you at a huge disadvantage, not having information, injury reports, and whatnot on Friday. So there's no reason for me to ever really consider a Thursday night game. But even if this game were on Sunday, I agree 100%. I do not like this game from a spread perspective. I don't find any value at 1.5. 3, I would find value, but not at 1.5, not at under a field goal. The Falcons seem to play a lot of these 1-2 point games. They've played a number of 1-2 point games, like the back and forth field goal game. But I also agree with what you said. I mean, they didn't deserve to win last week. The Saints should have won that game. The Falcons got lucky a couple of times. This is not the first time. Obviously, the Eagles blew the game against Atlanta. I think Tampa is a slightly better team. The Thursday nights get kind of funky. I generally look to the home team on Thursday nights. If the coaching matchup really favors that home team, I don't really see any real coaching edge in this game. So for me, it's really, I would look to Tampa on a teaser for action, but no real interest in a pick of either side.
I love Tampa on a teaser. I think I may put them on one. But my 2 Thursday rules are: one, if take the far superior team, if there is one, if you think they're going to be focused, and I don't think there is one here. I think, like you said, Tampa a little bit better, but not substantially. And then 2, if one of the teams is coming off an overtime game, that's generally a fade. I think they're like 5-25 against the spread, but that doesn't apply to either team here either. So yeah, we can move on. Although what you said, I agree with. I'd never submit Thursday games. Like the one exception is Thanksgiving weekend when you have like 3 games and Black Friday, and I feel like you have to love at least 3 games to submit. That's what I did last year. Actually, I loved 4 of the games, all 4. I submitted all 4 plus a 5th one. So I feel like that's the only time you could really do it, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, 3. If you really like 3 out of 4, and you're comfortable with the other 2, regardless, then I guess you're okay. But when there's 1, is no chance. I don't even really think about it until Thursday, Friday, as far as narrowing down 5. Just before we move on, I mentioned my coaching theme. If there's a real coaching edge, that's where I look on a Thursday night as far as a pick is concerned. But this year, I mean, I just feel like every single Sunday I'm talking to some of my friends throughout the games, just commenting on coaches, and we'll get to certain teams with coaches. I mean, you and I talked about one of them on Sunday. To me, this coaching epidemic throughout the league of being non-aggressive, of punting when I think very easily should be going for certain 4th downs, and kicking short field goals has become an epidemic. So I definitely look for that coaching edge and that coaching theme throughout the week. Like I said, I don't find any advantage here with a rookie head coach against Todd Bowles. So I'm not interested in backing either one of those, especially on a Thursday.
What about the? Well, I guess we'll get to them later. But what about the Mike McDaniel strategy of just staring like a deer in the headlights as your team does a 2-minute drill before halftime?
And I don't really know what happened with Mike McDaniel. He was fantastic in year 1, just getting that team in the Shanahan system, getting guys wide open all over the field. And now he just looks confused. You look at him and I don't know what he's thinking. He's running end arounds and jet sweeps on 4th down, and just he looks totally lost. I don't know what's going on with Mike McDaniels or Miami, but he's definitely he might not be long for coaching. He might be back being an offensive coordinator very soon.
Yeah, Alec Ingold was his primary weapon against Seattle. It didn't really make much sense. Helen Hunt's not Helen Hunt. Hen Hunt says this seems like a tough game to play. I do like Atlanta at home. Atlanta defense has been solid. I think their offense will keep getting better throughout the season. They could be. I just worry about the offensive line missing 2 players. But if they get one guy back, then they could be better. Yeah, Atlanta offense is brutal right now. They haven't went off, but I like Cousins leading with his offensive weapons. Yeah, Cousins had a chance to cover last week. I don't know if you saw the end, but he had Darnell Mooney wide open. Well, not wide open, but he was pretty open, and he just missed him by like a yard on a deep shot. So they settled for a field goal on the next play. I think like 2 plays later. And I had Atlanta minus 2.5 in the contest, and of course they won by 2. So I was pretty salty about that result. We'll move on to the Sunday slate. We have a 9:30 a.m. game. I hate these early starts. Jets versus the Vikings in London. The Vikings are 2.5-point favorites here. I've been on the Vikings the past 3 weeks, so it feels like it's kind of early on the bandwagon. Before it got cool to like the Vikings, but now everyone's on. I feel like everyone's betting the Vikings. Looks like there's some sharp money on the Jets. There's line movement here. The Jets were -1 on the advanced spread. Now they're +2.5, which is like a 7% marginal difference, which is like pretty substantial. You'd think there'd be less from -1 to +2.5, but it's what it is. I like Aaron Rodgers coming off a loss, and he won't be confused about playing against Brian Flores, who tends to confuse young quarterbacks. Think of like what the Vikings have done this year. Like they faced primarily young quarterbacks or like bad quarterbacks. So Daniel Jones week 1, he sucks. Brock Purdy week 2, he's still young. CJ Stroud week 3, he's still young. Jordan Love last week, he's still young. Now he's got Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he's going to be able to fool Rodgers as much. And conversely, I think Sam Darnold against this Jets pass defense could be in trouble here. So I'm going to be on the Jets. So I'm going to be off the Vikings for the first time since week 1. So and I think this might make my card. Assuming there are no like injury shenanigans. So who do you like in this game?
So first of all, I tend to stay away from the London games as well. I just think strange things have happened in London. It's hard for me to handicap the overseas games. I believe favorites kind of dominate overseas. I don't know the exact numbers, but favorites tend to win outright the majority of the games. I think the gross majority of the games, but I don't have the exact numbers. I think I do agree with one thing you said. Rodgers is not going to be flustered. I don't think it's really the quarterback being young against Flores. It's more the system. So the Shanahan system, obviously Purdy, the same thing happened last year against when the Niners played the Vikings, although they played the Vikings without Debo, Trent Williams, and McCaffrey. But the system, the Shanahan system, a lot is very quick slant over the middle. It's a quick kind of one read over the middle look. Bobby Slowick comes from the Shanahan tree, and Mike LaFleur comes from the Shanahan tree. So I know Green Bay runs a slightly different offense, but a lot of it is focused on attacking the middle of the field. That quick one read or first read is over the middle, and Flores tends to bring guys up to the line of scrimmage and drop linebackers into coverage, which confuses the young guys and kind of takes away that middle of the field. Now, Rodgers, if you think about Rodgers, a lot of his plays are quick throws to the outside, not so much over the middle. He's got that really quick, strong wrist release where he gets that ball out. He did it a couple times last week. Passes were dropped. Obviously, the rain was a factor, but he's able to get that ball out to the sidelines, and he's not going to be confused by what Flores is throwing at him. The problem is, and where I slightly disagree with you, is the offensive line. They're so focused right now on cadence and pre-snap penalties and holding guys accountable versus changing Rodgers' play calls at the line of scrimmage. They're so worried about his snap count and jumping for false starts. Flores is going to confuse the lineman. He's going to have guys dancing at the line of scrimmage and where they're coming from, who's coming, who's not, where are the protections. So I don't like that. Rodgers can handle it better than the Purdy Strouds and Jordan Loves of the world, but can his offensive line handle it? Yeah. And can they move the ball in general? They haven't moved the ball at all. They didn't move the ball well against Tennessee. They didn't move the ball, obviously, at all against Denver. And the New England game, I mean, they played okay, but it was more their defense just completely shut down New England. So I don't really trust what I'm seeing right now from the Jets. I don't like the fact that Minnesota's off of a huge win. Again, 3 straight big wins. At some point, the tide's going to turn for Minnesota. They're not the best team in the league. They're good, but they're not a top 5 team. And the Jets really do need the win. So I don't really have a strong opinion either way. I wouldn't pick the game from the London perspective. But Minnesota's clicking right now. Their defense is playing great. Right now, coach of the year is probably Brian Flores and O'Connell from a coordinator and head coach perspective. Those guys are doing as good a job as anybody. And I'm just concerned right now with the Jets' offensive line to really take a stand. But I also agree with you. I don't like when that line moves, when the favorites flip because of one game. The Jets, it was pouring, it was raining. They obviously didn't show up. They're traveling to London the next week. And, maybe Green Bay kind of exhales a little bit. Jordan Love is back. So maybe they get to exhale. It's not Malik Willis. They can kind of relax. And everything has kind of gone right for Minnesota. At some point, like I said, it's going to change. I'm just not willing to bet against them yet.
But it's a great point about the system, not the quarterback. What if this line were like 3? What if it got to 3? Do you feel differently?
If this line were 3, I'm taking the underdog just because I think it's a close game. Either team can win. To me, it's a toss-up game. I don't necessarily favor either team to win to win comfortably. I definitely don't want to bet against Rodgers when they're coming off a loss. Teams with Rodgers generally will be more focused this week in practice, whereas Minnesota, they're really fat and happy. We're 4-0. They're playing with house money now every single week. It's not a big game for them. Now, that said, they're playing great. Sam Darnold's playing great. Jefferson's always open, even though Sauce Gardner could kind of shut him down or somewhat contain him, not shut him down. They're running the ball well, and I just don't trust the Jets' offense or offensive line against any sort of blitzing defense that's playing as well as Minnesota's defense. So for me, it's pass. London, even if this game were Sunday, not in London, I would probably pass. I don't have a lean either way. At 3, yes, I like the Jets. At Pick'em, I don't know. I don't really have any strong conviction, but I'm definitely not betting we're picking this game.
Okay. Two things that you mentioned. Aaron Rodgers off a loss. He's 39-21 against the spread in his career. So
that makes sense. Not surprised.
Pretty excellent. Any good quarterback's generally going to have a great record, but that's like unbelievable. And then you brought up the London, the overseas favorite. They are 34-18 against the spread. So that's pretty good.
And I see above that straight up 40-12.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know those numbers, but it feels like every time I'm watching a London game, the favorite generally plays better. It's like a business trip. The favorite is there to win. They're not taking anything for granted. But again, I don't want to bet against Rodgers coming off of this loss. I don't want to bet on Minnesota playing with house money, but I also don't want to bet on the Jets offensive line against Brian Flores.
Yeah, look at the higher the spread goes, the better they do. Look at this: favorites of 7 or more in London or overseas, 9-2 against the spread. So it's something to watch out for, perhaps if we get an opportunity to do that later. I don't think I did the small favorites ones, only 9-5 against the spread, which I guess is pretty good, but I don't think that's like too much of a sample size. Plus, like, it could always flip as teams get used to traveling to overseas. Not that they are used to that yet, but still.
And the line's under a field goal, so you're picking a winner.
Exactly, yeah. First of all, says, hey, Walt, fresh off a 4-1 week. Let's do it. Congratulations. That's awesome. I went 3-2 in the Super Contest. 9-11 straight up, and 9-11 in the Super Contest, 10-10 in the Circus. So
I'm right there with you at 9-10-1 in both.
Okay, just treading water.
I try to stick around to 500 for the first quarter of the season.
I feel pretty good about this week's slate. And like the past 2 weeks overall, I'm 10-6, and then last week I was 10-4-2. So it feels like the first couple weeks, well, I got burned on stupid Tennessee twice. And then the Giants missing their kicker. So I feel like should have 3 more wins, And I always tell Andy this, always tell my bad beats to him. And he's like, well, you have to factor in your lucky wins. And so I've been tracking that in my head. I've had no lucky wins. There have been none.
It's early.
Exactly. Yeah. They're trying to get some lucky wins. Like if Cousins connected to Mooney on that play that I talked about, that would have been a lucky win. Unfortunately, couldn't get there. Let's see here. Minnesota's coaching advantage. Jets coaching staff couldn't come up with a win versus the banged up Denver defense. I agree with that completely. it's just, yeah, Hackett is just a disaster. Like, talk about Hackett versus Flores here. There's a big edge to Minnesota.
Yeah, and I mentioned before the coaching theme. The Jets had first and goal at the 1 yard line, and they settled for a field goal. Now I understand they may have gone backwards. Maybe it's fourth and goal from the 2 or 3. I forget exactly. You cannot kick a field goal, first and goal from the 1 yard line, unless you take a penalty and you end up with fourth and goal from outside the 10 or outside, let's say, the 6 or 7, maybe. Because in that situation, Denver was not able to complete a forward pass. They literally did not complete a forward pass in the first half of that game. So I would rather forego the 3 points, give Denver the ball at the 2. They're not going anywhere. So I want the ball back basically at midfield, and I'll take my chances getting the ball back and being in field goal range with one play than kicking a field goal and then kicking off and putting them on the 30. So those kinds of coaches, and we'll talk, just the first one that comes to mind, that's Saleh. You cannot kick a field goal. If that's a coach that you're backing, be prepared to have that happen again and again and again throughout the season. And don't ask yourself, wait, well, why are we kicking a field goal here? Or why are we punting on 4th and 1? Why are we not going for 4th and 1 at the 35? And instead we're settling for a 53 or 55-yard field goal that has a low percentage or maybe a 50 or 60% chance of making. That's not a team that I want to be backing at this stage of the season.
Yeah, that was just terrible coaching, like, all around. I don't know what they were doing. I figure, like, you either get 3 or you get 2. If you don't score the touchdown on 4th down, I don't know. Like, what Bo Nix's stat line was, at halftime he was 7 of 15 for -7 yards.
Negative, yeah, exactly. And there's a value to pinning Denver back. It's kind of like an intangible value, but there's a value of putting Denver on the 2 yard line. It's worth something,
right?
It's not. It's very unlikely they're going to be able to drive the field. It's more likely you're going to get the ball back in good scoring position, and you'll get your field goal anyway. But take the chance. Even if you have a 55% chance of the touchdown in that situation, you got to take that chance. And those 4 points are the game.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're just terrible. You've been betting on your cards, so this gives me more confidence in the Vikings. So well, 9 and 11 is not too bad, especially with the 3 unlucky games. So it should be 12 and 8. So not too bad. So I don't know if you should judge it on that. This is an old Rodgers. I feel like he's not the issue. So Hen says, I like Rodgers though, so I don't like going against him. I feel like he should always win. I mean, I don't know if it should always win, but yeah, it's like, especially off a loss, you definitely want to back him. I like the Jets bounce back spot. Vikings huge public money, Vegas liability. Yeah, there's a lot of public money on the Vikings. Do you factor a lot of that in? Do you factor in public money in at all?
I mean, I'll look at it. Obviously, if someone's a public dog, or the public is betting somebody, and I look at it more if the line doesn't move. If I know that the public is betting the Vikings, and the line held, pick them. Now I'm concerned because now someone knows something I don't.
Right.
And the books are smiling behind the closed doors like, okay, let the public keep taking it. If they're not moving the line to get the other side, to me, it's fishy and I'm staying away. But if the line's moving, the public could be right. And the Vikings were dogs and now they're favored. So the line is moving for a reason. If the books move this, I don't think it'll get to 3, but if it got to 3, someone's taking a big position on Minnesota.
Yep.
And that would, again, I wouldn't be laying 3, but I'd be concerned. So I don't generally care about the public, but I look at the line moves.
Yeah, public is sometimes right. Just like the sharps are sometimes wrong. All right, so Panthers at the Bears, the first game in the regular Sunday slate. I think the Bears are the most overrated team in the NFL now, and I gauge that based on my responses on Twitter and email. So 2 years ago, when I refused to put the Vikings in the top 8, despite their 13-4 record, I had so many Viking fans sending me hate mail. They're like, "You're such an idiot. How can you not put them in the top 3, let alone the top 8?" I just didn't think they were a good team. I thought the defense was horrible, and that they were.
How was the worst defense in football?
Yeah, they got outscored during the regular season, and right. They were a paper tiger. They lost right away in the playoffs. Last year, it was the Eagles. The Eagles were 10-1, but their defense was awful too. And people are like, "Hey, why are you hating on the Eagles? They're 10-1," and I didn't think they were that good of a team. This year, I think it's Chicago. It's early, a lot can change, but they're 2-2. Feels like they could easily be 0-4. They got outgained by the Rams this past Sunday. Yeah, I probably should win that game. But week 1 against Tennessee, they got doubled in yardage by Tennessee. They lost because of a block punt and Will Levis being stupid. So this is just not a very good team. And I don't think they're going to be very focused here either. They have to travel to London next week. And that was one of the reasons why I like the Broncos so much last week, is because big favorites going into London, or just overseas games in general. They're, I think, favorites of 4 or more in that situation, 12-19 against the spread. Just a bad spot for them, preparing to do so. And it's not like the Bears or the Jaguars where they're used to this. Like, this is not a common event for them. So, and plus they're coming off a win. I don't know how seriously they're going to take Carolina. Meanwhile, Carolina's been better with Andy Dalton. This is, I guess, stop 2 on his revenge tour here. So I like him a little bit here against Chicago's defense, which I think is pretty inflated, given that the teams they've gone against, except for the Texans, just a bunch of mediocre teams that are either banged up or just lack talent. My numbers for this are pretty off. Like, I made this line, Chicago -2. The EPA numbers say Chicago should be -2.5. So I think good value here on Carolina. So I think everything points toward Carolina here. Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I agree with you. Everything you said. I actually highlighted Carolina as a possible pick to look at. Obviously, Chicago's overrated. They almost did it cover last week. If you look back, the Rams fumbled on their own 20, which led to 7 points. They also missed a couple. They missed a short field goal in the 40-yard range. So that game could have easily gone the other way. And that was a Rams team that was coming off the win the previous week against the Niners, kind of stealing house money there. So have not been impressed. I happen to really like Caleb Williams. I liked him a lot in college. I was excited for him coming out, but he has not been great. He's kind of bailing from the pockets, got a little bit of the happy feet. He's overthrowing players. Their defense is good. And Carolina's defense is very much not good. They've been terrible. They've been one of the worst defenses in the league, but with Dalton, they've been competitive. They're fighting back. I mean, they were down big last week. They cut that game to 10 points. They actually almost cut it to 3 or 7. They had the ball late with a chance to make it a 1-score game, so they certainly are fighting. I highlighted this game. I thought the line in this game should be 2.5, 3. When I saw 4.5 earlier in the week, I immediately highlighted it. I know the line has dropped down to 4. I did see at one point this was a 3.5, but now I think I see 4s across the board. I think DraftKings has a 3.5, but for the most part, most of the books have 4. At 4, this is a potential pick for me. I mean, I don't like Carolina. If I were still alive in Survivor, Chicago was a highlighted possible pick. So I don't like when I kind of think like, okay, I'm thinking of taking Chicago as a Survivor pick, but I like Carolina +4. Therefore, I probably shouldn't be taking Chicago in Survivor. And if I were still alive in Survivor, I probably would lay off the game. But I do like Carolina +4.5, and certainly can go either way. Carolina, a live dog.
Glad to hear that we're on the same side here. And if you're still alive in Survivor and you don't have the Niners, this is a pretty tough week, I think. There's like one pick you can maybe take, but I like the underdog in that game. So I really don't know what I'd be doing here. Just sweating it out, I guess. All right, let's move on to the next game. Ravens at the Bengals. So the I believe this line is just pretty off here, because think about it. The Bengals, they're 1-3 right now, but in week 2, Joe Burrow fumbles in a game in which they're super competitive against the Chiefs. They end up losing because of that fumble. If Burrow doesn't fumble and they upset the Chiefs, they're 2-2 here, same record as the Ravens. I don't think they're underdogs here. Now maybe they're pick them, maybe they're -1, but it just seems like this line is off, and people have suddenly forgotten about the Ravens' problems. Like, they have 3 new offensive linemen. They have issues in their secondary. They have issues rushing the passer. Feels like the Bengals could take advantage of these areas. Like, the issues in the Baltimore secondary. They obviously have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. With the offensive line, they have good pass rushers, especially on the edge. I worry about Cincinnati's run defense. That's like my only real hang-up here. But we're getting good value with the Bengals, who I think they should be favored. And the public disagrees. Like, the public is like 80% on Baltimore. So this is just like an easy public fade, I think, for me. So I'm curious to hear what you think about this.
Yeah, this is an easy pass for me, because I have a very hard time picking a team like Baltimore off of a huge blowout win on national TV, which is why this line just steamed to where it is. I think for a minute it hit 3 on what's today, Tuesday. So yesterday it hit 3 for a couple of seconds and then immediately was brought back down to 2.5. So I have a hard time playing a team that's coming off of that kind of win. But that being said, Cincinnati's defense has not been good. They have not been good against the run this year. They lost DJ Reader, obviously, in free agency. So they have not been good against the run. And Baltimore, if you recall back to last year, I know the offensive line changes, but changes don't necessarily mean that they're going to be bad. They were unbelievable running the football. Both, obviously this past week, Henry was unbelievable. And they ran the football well the prior week. So if they're going to start bullying teams on the line with Jackson and Henry, and then being able to use Justice Hill out of the backfield as a receiver, they obviously don't have really any real downfield passing threats. Likely has been a dud since week 1. Andrews looks old and washed up. Zay Flowers wasn't involved in the passing game at all. It's been all at the line of scrimmage, Justice Hill or Lamar and Henry running the football. I'm not willing to get in front of that right now. Last year, they blew out a number of playoff contending teams. They blew out Seattle. They blew out Detroit last year. They blew out. They won big against the Niners. They killed Miami, who was a playoff team last year. So if they're going to be that team, that's not a team I'm stepping in front of, getting 2.5. 3, maybe, but I still don't really have that much interest. Remember, both of these teams kind of really still need the game. Baltimore is 2-2. Cincinnati needs the game more because they're 1-3. But the loser of this game, if Baltimore loses, they're right there at 2-3. So they still need the game. Both of these teams are well coached, in my opinion. And I'm just not going to stand in front of Baltimore. I did last week. I took Buffalo last week. I thought Buffalo going into the game was the better team. And boy, was I mistaken. I paid for it. So I'm not going to step in front of Baltimore right now, but I'm also not going to get on a team that's off of that major, 20-plus point win the very next week after a showing on national TV. So easy pass for me. And I wouldn't play this game on a teaser either side.
Yeah, I did not bet Baltimore Buffalo outside of a teaser where I had Buffalo plus 8.5 with Kansas City -1, and I felt good with the Chiefs winning, and ended pretty quickly, unfortunately. Mike Gervais asking, what do you think about NFL is for entertainment purposes, not real? You mean like games are fixed? I remember an interview that Jim Rome had a long time ago. It was like a former mobster. He was like not allowed in New York or something. And he said that one NFL game is fixed per month, and like a couple college football games are fixed every week. I don't know how true that is, but like you can't like. I hate when people are like, "Oh, there's no way these games are fixed," because we saw what happened with Tim Donaghy in the NBA. So like,
exactly,
there's definitely a chance.
We all got burned betting NBA over unders 20 years ago.
Right. So there's definitely a chance for that, and I don't know. There might have been a Tim Donaghy moment in that Jacksonville-Houston game last week when Travis Etienne magically did not have forward progress, even though he was trying to run out of the end zone.
Or somehow you have Kansas City gets the benefit of every single pass interference or non-pass interference. And I don't know if you follow any college football, but Virginia Tech, Miami, the ending of that game this weekend where there was a Hail Mary that was caught and ruled a catch on the field. And they spent about 15 minutes reviewing the play. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, go Google the Virginia Tech Miami ending this weekend. It was one of the most unbelievable endings you'll ever see in a football game. There is absolutely no way there's any video evidence to overturn whatever call was made on the field. And somehow they overturned the call to give Miami a win. And the conspiracy theorists are, well, Miami is an undefeated ACC team, and the ACC office is making that call. Now, is the game fixed? There's no way these games are fixed. Are the refs somehow getting involved with Kansas City pass interference calls or lack thereof? Who knows? I mean, I last week or Friday after Aubrey missed the field goal when the line is 5.5, Dallas
Right.
and the Giants, I can't tell you how many people I heard saying, yeah, he's got an earpiece and somebody called it in that he's never missed a 50-yard field goal, and you got to push this one wide right. I don't believe any of that. I'd be hard pressed that that's going on in any of these games. The games are fixed. It would be very sad if that were the case.
I joked because I said the Sharps were on the Giants plus 5.5.
And I was on the Giants plus 5.5 too. Not in a contest pick, but that was fun.
I had Cowboys -5, so I pushed. But I tweeted out that Brandon Aubrey was one of the sharps who had the Giants +5.5. And, I mean, I was obviously joking. Like, if he did want the game to be fixed, like he would have missed the other field goals. Like, I don't think he would have hit all of them except for the last one. So it was just unfortunate. He's still the best kicker in the NFL, I think. Walt called out the defensive line last week. They have an uphill battle. Yeah, Bengals, I assume. Well, I love their edge rushers. I feel like they can have a good advantage there. So I don't think the Bengals, I still think have a chance. Like, they tend to play Baltimore pretty closely, and they've limited Lamar Jackson's running like pretty well the past couple of years. So I think they'll be all right. This refs last night, both games are horrendous. I didn't notice the officiating in last night's games. Yeah, I don't know. And then if you don't think no NFL games are fixed, you may have a blind spot. Yeah, I think like you just don't know. There's no evidence of it, but I'd be shocked if they weren't. Just like I said, you have Donahue. I'm sure there are other refs who have committed such similar things, but we just don't know that. We don't have the evidence of it, but you can see. I think you can see it sometimes. All right, next game, Bills at the Texans. This is another instance where you have a good quarterback coming off a loss. You have Josh Allen here, not just a loss, just an embarrassing loss. And I love betting on good teams coming off humiliating losses. And the Bills obviously qualify as a good team. Josh Allen off a loss, 11-7 against the spread, which is it's pretty solid. And the Texans just don't look right to me. We actually had a conversation about the Texans coaching, which I was losing my mind last week with some of their play calling that Bobby Slowick had. Like, Slowick had such a good year last year, and this season just been off. There are issues with the Texans offensive line right now. Laramie Tunsil's just not healthy. He missed 20 snaps last week. I don't know if he's like winded or something or just out of shape, but he's definitely hobbling, and he's definitely not right. Now, the Bills are not going to have Von Miller, but he's only playing like 40% of the snaps, and they have other guys who can rush the passer. I think that'll be fine. And by the way, the line didn't move when it was announced that he was suspended. So I still like Buffalo here. Not like one of my top plays, but kind of medium-sized play. And it might be like the 4th or 5th pick in the Super Contest if it ends up making the cut. So who do you like here?
Yeah, this is one of those games where, I mean, if Buffalo had won last week, I would really like Houston this week. The only reason why I'm kind of off the game is because of what you said about good quarterbacks coming off of blowout losses, bouncing back. But I like, from a matchup perspective, all situational football out of play, I like the matchup for Houston because, as I said before with Minnesota takes away the middle of the field. Buffalo does not. They don't have the linebackers or safeties anymore to handle the middle of the field. They're very susceptible to that. And that's where Stroud will attack. Nico Collins and I think Diggs against his old team, I think they're going to really make an effort to get him the ball, get him the ball in space, and I think he's going to have a big day. But I think they're going to attack downfield, middle of the field. Nico Collins has been unbelievable, and Stroud has been unbelievable, but he's been bailing them out drive after drive. So it's two problems with Houston. And I mentioned this to you on Sunday, and we kind of had not a laugh, but just a frustration. And I had Jacksonville plus the points as a contest pick, but I'm losing my mind thinking, like, why is Houston running the ball on 2nd and 9? And I charted it. I was looking throughout the game how many times they ran the ball. They ran the ball. First of all, they averaged like 2 yards a carry on first down. They had, I'm counting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 carries for 1 or 2 yards on first down, plus a holding penalty. So 10 of their first down runs produced literally nothing. And they ran the ball on 2nd and long so many of those times. And they're getting, one time it was 2nd and 16, and they ran the ball. It's like, they picked up 7. But what is the goal here? 2nd and 9, we're running the ball for 4 yards, so we're setting up 3rd down. They were constantly setting up 3rd and medium, 3rd and long, instead of letting Stroud attack. And to Stroud's credit, he would convert on a lot of those situations. And 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7. Okay, Stroud, let's go do it again. So those play calls, so they didn't produce yards. They were not successful. And then, like you said about the offensive line, they've had so many procedural penalties, holding penalties, illegal shift, illegal formation, and it's really the offensive line just really putting them in this hole. So if they got away from those 2nd down or early down, unproductive, unsuccessful running plays, and cleaned up a lot of the offensive line miscues, the penalties, the pre-snap penalties, I think they're a Super Bowl contender. I really do. I had them from preseason. I have them in my top 5. I forget where I have them right now. I still have Houston 5th in the league. It's close. Maybe Detroit is right there with them, but I have Houston as a top 5 potential Super Bowl contending team if they can clean up some of these easy mistakes. And I really like the matchup over the middle of the field. But I'm not going to bet against Josh Allen coming off of a massive blowout loss. Now, I will say also for Buffalo, and sometimes with Josh Allen, it gets maddening when they trail. And he did this a couple of years ago against Cincinnati in the playoffs when they got blown out. And he did it again last week. It's 1st and 10. You're at midfield. He has a tendency to just chuck the ball deep. First down, incomplete deep. Second down, incomplete deep. Third down. It's like, what are we doing? You can line up. You have Shakir, who's been great, a slot receiver over the middle. They can get Cook in space. You can throw him a screen pass, get him in space. And frankly, if Josh Allen takes a snap and turns and runs upfield, he's going to pick up 6-7 yards. If you spread the field, he doesn't have to chuck the ball deep on 1st and 10, 2nd and 10, and 3rd and 10. So I hate the play calling from Buffalo when they are in those situations. And I talked before about the Jets with the short field goals. With Buffalo, this made no sense on Sunday night. On the first drive of the game, they have 4th and 1 at their own 39-yard line. It's the first drive. It's 0-0.
I remember this, yeah.
Baltimore hasn't had a ball. And they go for it. And I was saying to somebody, this is how you win football games. You take this, you get this first down, and you drive, and this is a big turning point. It's a change in the game. It's a big part of the game. Get that first down, and they got that first down, no problem. The next series, or the next series in that first drive, it's 4th and 2 at midfield, and they punted. And that to me made no sense. And then 2 drives later, it's now 14-3. You haven't stopped Baltimore at all. They had an 87-yard run. Then Buffalo got the field goal. Baltimore ball back. Touchdown again. They walk up the field touch. It's 14-3. Third drive, it's 4th and 1 at the 39. They already converted 4th and 1 at the 39. Nope, he punted. So it's one of these coaches that, again, there's no consistency. What is the message that we're telling our team? We can't pick up that yard? Or are we so confident now in our defense to all of a sudden be able to get a stop? So I didn't like that. I didn't like that from Buffalo's coaching staff, the inconsistencies with going for 4th down or not, and the Josh Allen throwing the ball downfield when he has a lot over. And they did this actually in the playoffs last year. If you remember against Kansas City, they were chucking the ball into the end zone in a situation right before they missed that field goal. They ended up with a first down. Presumably, you don't want to score too quickly because Kansas City will get the ball back. And on what I forget the down it was, first down or second down, he's throwing the ball into the end zone. He's looking for that home run play every single time, and I don't like that about Buffalo. And that's I really like Buffalo as a team overall. I think they're a playoff team. They're an 11 or 12 win team. I think they're going to win the division, especially in now a weaker AFC East. But situationally, matchup-wise, I like Houston. Coming off the huge loss, I don't want any part of the game. To me, it's a game to enjoy. This is a playoff matchup. Could be an AFC championship game preview or a divisional round preview. And I'd rather just sit back and enjoy the game. I don't have any play or pick or lean.
Fair enough. John says Bill's getting Bernard and maybe Taron Johnson back. That would be huge. You talk about defending the middle of the field. They've been missing those 2 guys. So
big.
That'll help a lot. John saying it was 4th and inches. Josh Allen sneak is automatic. 4th and 2, you don't have that option. I still think you go for it. I remember thinking that live. I'm like, why are they not going for it? I thought that was a huge mistake. And I know it's like different situation. You can't run a sneak on 4th and 2, but you could get 2 yards, I think. And
you line up Josh Allen in the shotgun, let him take the snap, quarterback draw. That's a tough play to stop, especially if you have the threat of guys, spread the field. There's no reason to go jumbo where everyone knows you're running the ball or taking the snap under center and going sneak. Spread him out. Put 3 receivers on the field. Put 2 receivers, 2 tight ends on the field. Spread him out a little bit. He's got Kincaid. Kincaid's been good. He's got Cook out of the backfield. Has been very good. They scored a touchdown a couple weeks ago on a 4th down play early in a game where they ran a play. They ran a screen to Cook coming out of the backfield to the boundary. I think on the left side of the field. I believe that was a touchdown earlier in the season. Maybe that was the Miami game. And there's no reason why you go for it 4th and 1 at the 39, but then you punt 4th and 2 at midfield, especially when you're playing against Baltimore. That was the first drive, but 2 drives later, and you punt it again 4th and 1. It just didn't make sense. And those types of coaching decisions, and the same thing with Bobby Slowick, and not that they're punting or Houston's being aggressive, but the early down runs, 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10 runs. What are we doing here? We're setting up 3rd and 7 just because Stroud is bailing you out. The game to enjoy, not a game to pick, not a game to bet on.
That Texans play calling was maddening. It really was. And it's someone mentioned that Brandon said Tulsa rolled his ankle a bit, came back after halftime, but he hasn't been right this year. Like he had that game against Minnesota where he had 4 penalties in a row. It just seems like something's off with him. But yeah, that really helped. That really hurt the Texans. That running, especially right before halftime when they were doing the 2-minute drill. Like they ran some play and then there was a penalty, and like they had a couple penalties in a row and just drained the clock. And so by the time they got to the red zone, they had no time left. And they had
and that's been a theme. They had that problem 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago also, where they didn't get any points before halftime. So again, the theme for this season thus far, besides for teams running the ball a lot more, coaching. If you don't trust the coach that you're picking, you better, before you make a pick, you better know what coaching staff you're picking. And who they're playing against, because if you're on the other side of that edge, you're gonna end up wondering why did they do that? Why did they go for this 4th down? Why are they kicking the field goals from the 2? And okay, well now you know you don't want to be on the Jets when you have Hackett against Forrest, and that's just coaching edges throughout the league. It's been an epidemic with punting and lack of aggression, and just coaches not really understanding game situation.
That's why I didn't take the Bears last week, because it was Matt Eberflus as a favorite against Sean McVay.
Exactly. Stay away.
Stay away. Obviously, the Bears covered, but the Rams easily could have. It feels like the talent disparity between those two teams is much larger than 6 points in Chicago, So, if it wasn't for those weird turnovers the Rams had, the Rams may have won the game. Wasn't the starting center out the second time? I don't remember. I don't recall that. Maybe he was. Maybe I missed it. I don't know. Does that ring a bell? I don't know that. No. Joe Brady said he sucked as a play caller. At least he owned up to that ridiculous trick play. Yeah, that trick play was so bad. But
that did it. Yeah, they had momentum. They were coming back. I think they were down 13 at the time.
Yep.
Maybe it was 11 down 21-10 at the time, something like that. And all of a sudden, 2nd and 7, and I mean that just didn't make any sense.
It's very painful because I was like, hey, they're not going to cover, but they'll cover the 8.5 from my teaser, and fortunately they did not. All right, next game we have Colts at the Jaguars. This is the first Sunday game in which I don't really have an opinion, just because we don't know the quarterback's going to be. It could be Richardson, Flacco. Richardson got hurt last week. They came back for a play, then he got hurt again when he scrambled. Kind of like the theme for Richardson. I feel like he's only finished like 4 complete games or 5 complete games in his career thus far, which is pretty disconcerting, I think. But so as far as Richardson versus Flacco, like it's not going to change the spread at all, I feel like. But I think schematically, I would like Flacco a lot more than Richardson in this game. Well, first of all, because Richardson might be playing hurt. Flacco's going to be healthy. Second, Jacksonville's main weekness is their secondary. They're missing Tyson Campbell. The rest of the secondary is just awful, especially their cornerbacks. Feels like just a great situation for Pittman and Downs to exploit. But if it's Richardson, you just can't trust the accuracy. With Flacco, you can. So I'm looking out for that, just waiting to see what the practice reports are like for Richardson. Also, I'm kind of not sure about this, but I think there's an outside chance that the Jaguars might quit on Doug Peterson. In his post-game press conference, he said something like, I'm not playing out there. Something just kind of like threw the players under the bus. So I don't know if the players, I don't know if they listened to that, but if they heard it, they might not try very hard for Peterson moving forward. So right now I'm leaning toward Indianapolis, but if like Richardson's limited all week and he plays, I think I'd suddenly have interest in Jacksonville just because, injured quarterback playing and can't exploit the main weakness for Jacksonville. So where are you leaning here?
Yeah, you nailed it as far as, Peterson is concerned. We could throw everything else out the window. I heard a report today about players in the locker room being against Peterson, that he may have lost the locker room. Anytime you hear a coach possibly losing the locker room, being on that hot seat, you get off that train immediately. And while that coach is still there, until that coach is fired, you can take advantage week after week, because that team is not going to play hard for that coach. And if you're not playing hard and you're not practicing and preparing for these games, you don't have a chance. And then the minute they fire that coach and bring in somebody new, you get the Antonio Pierce effect from last year, or the Jeff Saturday effect from the year before. where you're going to, all of a sudden, a team is going to play hard and your opponent kind of takes you lightly. So if I have any inclination that the team is not going to play hard for Peterson, I have no interest in backing that team. Now, I also agree with what you said as far as Flacco. Jaguars have been very good against the run. They have not been very good against the pass. So I don't mind Flacco in this situation. I have no idea why Richardson gets hurt. He gets hit. He comes out. He goes back in, and they call a QB counter. That was a designed QB run. They did not. That was not a play that was broken down that he escaped the pocket. That was a designed counter on the first play. Like, what are we doing here? That didn't make any sense at all. Jacksonville, they have not won a game in the last 9 Trevor Lawrence starts. That is unbelievable. They're the last winless team. They haven't won a game since I don't know what the date was, but I know they're 1-9 since they were 8-3 to start last season. You watch Trevor Lawrence; he sails passes right and left. Last week, he sailed a pass that was a wide open touchdown. I think it was Brian Thomas or Kirk running down the field. He had plenty of room to put the ball on the money and let his receiver go make a play, and he completely overthrew him. He's been thrown high. It's just a team that, I mean, they're negative. I wrote this down. They're negative 49 point differential through 4 games. Only Carolina is worse. Their play calling in short yardage situations, their play calling on the goal line has been pathetic. They're not able to punch the ball in from inside the 5. It's just a team that I wouldn't want. Now, situationally, again, spot, they're 0-4. They're desperate for a win. If all things considered, if they are going to play hard and they're going to clean up some of these errors, then they're the ones who are desperate for the win. They're at home, and they beat the Colts every single year at home. I think they've won 9 straight against Indianapolis at home. But the fact that the coach is on the hot seat, no interest, no pick for me, no lean. Again, I'm not looking to bet this game. The other thing that I saw, again, it's way too early to look really at weather, but something to pay attention to in Jacksonville, Lawrence is horrible in games where it rains. So the way he holds the ball, he fumbles a lot. He's had a number of games in the rain where he's thrown a bunch of picks, dropped the ball, fumbled the ball. So I want no part of Lawrence in any sort of weather game. I want no part of a team that may have quit on their coach. So for me, easy pass.
So saying now this is an 0-14 favored at home by 3. Colts public dog. This is the game, or these guys are professionals, and this is an obvious bet on spot for Jacksonville. That goes with what you said. Like it's a great spot for the Jaguars. The problem is, like we were saying, the players might quit on Doug Peterson. So I would have concern there. But now, if it's Richardson being limited all week and he plays, I think I'd be on the Jaguars as well. But it's I don't know. I'd have to feel confident that the players wouldn't quit on him. Plus, the Jaguars have to go to London next week. I know they're not a big favorite, but it's still something to consider. Not that
Jacksonville. Who's their schedule coming up? They have a couple of winnable
Bears and Patriots coming up in London.
Yeah. If they win this game and then they can win their next 2 against easy teams, they come back from London feeling much better at 3-4 with a home game against Green Bay.
Yep.
All of a sudden the season is salvaged, and their win total right now is 6.5 wins. So if you like the Jaguars this week, I would play over. Now, I don't like the Jaguars this week, but if I did, I would play over 6.5 wins on the assumption that they can turn their season around. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to win 9 games. But if they win the next 3 games, they're probably going to win 7 or 8 games. And then that's a candidate for coming back and hedging the other way. But again, the coaching situation there to me is too scary to get behind.
Yeah, it really is. We had someone say Indianapolis is not good in Jacksonville. The Stu says Jaguars not good in Jacksonville. It's very true. Yeah, the one game they won in this 1-9 streak is against Carolina. So
okay, so that doesn't count.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Seabaz asking, is Sermon worth spending any fab on? If so, how much? I put in a 10% bid on Sermon. I mean, we're coming into week 5. Like, you're gonna have to start spending your fab. You can't. It goes away after the season's over. So I put in a big bet for or big bid for Dontavian Wicks. So hopefully I get him. I'm the second highest scoring team in this league, and I'm 1-3 somehow.
That's
I don't know.
Football. That's why I don't pay attention to fantasy football.
Exactly. Although best balls, I really got into best ball. Let's see. Steelers never expected it. Yeah, that run by Richardson. Yeah, that's true. They did get him off guard. Let's see here. So Chris saying that was the 100% the drive McCovern got injured on, tried to go back. Oh yeah. There was the independent consultant got him out. That's right. Yeah, I remember that. So maybe that was a factor. Are we ready to discuss Trevor Lawrence as a bust? I would like to see him with a different coach. I think you can discuss it, but I think Doug Peterson's just an awful coach, and I'd like to see him with a good coach. But
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's not a bust, but he's certainly not a generational quarterback that we expected.
yeah,
He's not a top 5 quarterback in the league.
Oh no, he's been a disappointment.
He's been a disappointment. He's not a bust. He's been a disappointment.
Do you think if the Jaguars had to redo that pick, do you think they'd still take Lawrence? I got asked that question today.
Who was that was the Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Fields.
Mac
Jones.
We could pull it up.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson went 2. Trey Lance went 3. Fields went a little bit later.
Yes.
And then Mac Jones went, I think, 15.
Yeah, so Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase.
Fields went 11, and then 15, if you scroll down, 15 will be Mac Jones.
Yeah, I think at this point, they probably...
there's no question that I would still take Lawrence, obviously, in that group. None of those other quarterbacks, Fields is in the league, but, he's an average, at best, average quarterback, probably slightly below average quarterback, more of a runner.
Yeah.
Lawrence has potential. He needs a real coach. We thought he needed a real coach in Peterson, but he needs a real coach.
Yeah, I think if you redo this draft, the Jaguars probably go Chase or Sewell or Surtain, number 1.
With the first pick overall, needing a quarterback? No, they need a quarterback.
Well, knowing that Lawrence is going to be a disappointment for you, maybe you wait till next year or the year after.
Remember, they gave him $200 million a couple months ago.
Yeah, I don't know if they regret that already, but that's it's pretty rough. I don't know. You guys let us know. If you're the Jaguars, you got to go back in time. Would you still take Lawrence? I think you definitely take him over those quarterbacks. I just feel like I don't know. The Browns once passed on Jared Goff and Carson Wentz for was Myles Garrett, right? So the teams can do that. You get Parsons or Chase Sewell or Surtain. And then you try to go after another quarterback next year. Not that 2022 isn't just an awful year for quarterbacks like Pickett and Willis. I
wouldn't give up on Lawrence yet.
I wouldn't either. I like I said, I think a better coach would be nice. There are some Carson Wentz vibes here, where Wentz was the MVP candidate in 2017. That they dragged the Eagles kicking, screaming to the playoffs in 2019, and then he just got worse because of the injuries. And Lawrence suffered a bunch of injuries last year. I kind of wonder if he's just not over them. I think that there's a chance. A question, what if Flacco starts? I'll like the Colts more if Flacco starts. The Colts are going to be try harder with Flacco because, good teams tend to rally around backup quarterbacks. Not that the Colts are necessarily a good team, but I still think they would. Tim Bay straight up, and at least in the teaser. We talked about the teaser for Tampa for sure. Should I do Shaheed and Pollard for Achane? I would not want to get Achane. Miami's run blocking is terrible, and teams can load the box up against Achane, knowing that no Miami quarterback can beat them downfield at this point. So I have no interest in Achane at all. I'd rather have Shaheed and Pollard in that trade. John says I take Parsons and then take Purdy in the 7th. There you go. That's the answer. Just take Purdy in the 7th round if you had to redo it. All right. Next game. Let's jump back here. Speaking of Dolphins, Dolphins and Patriots, it's a pick 'em or minus Patriots are -1 somewhere, but I don't have anything in this game. I don't know how you handicap this game. Maybe Tyler Huntley plays better this week now that he's going to have another week of practice, albeit a short week, so he's not going to have like a full practice week here for Miami. These are the bottom 2 teams in my power rankings. That was the case heading into week 4 as well. So it's not like an overreaction or anything. I just think both these teams are horrible. I don't like either coach. Although Gerard Mayo is kind of an unknown at this point, but Mike McDaniel, I said this last week. I can't remember any coach damaging his reputation over a 2-week period more than Mike McDaniel did. Like you said earlier, I thought he was a brilliant coach heading into the season, and he's just had so many missteps. And that deer in the headlights look. It's 3 weeks in a row. They've had a 2-minute drill. They just let time tick off. There's no timeouts called. There's no hurry. It just feels like he has no idea what's going on. And then you just think of some of the decision making he makes. Like he tries to get Alec Ingold involved in the passing game primarily over Tyreek Hill against Seattle. For some reason, he has Tim Boyle on his roster over Mike White. He chose Skylar Thompson over Mike White. I think this guy is just clueless. Maybe he was just lucky. I have no idea. Like, how did he get so bad at coaching? We had a joke. I forget who said it last week. Maybe someone could take credit for it here, but they were joking that Mike McDaniel's kind of like Walter White at this point, and like he's like selling drugs and he's not really paying attention to head coaching. I really don't know. So long story short, I have no idea who to take here. I think I'm leaning toward Miami just because I think they're slightly better than the Patriots, but I don't know. Do you have any?
I don't want to bore anybody with talk about Patriots and Dolphins. I thought that they would shift here to Drake May, and I thought this would be a good time to get somebody fresh and get some excitement. I get it. They have no offensive line. Their offensive line is too banged up, and once you make that move, you're not going back. So they may just think, hey, we're going to win 4 games. We're going to get a high draft pick. We're not going to ruin this guy's career by taking a beating behind a makeshift offensive line, and let him sit back and learn, and let Brissett kind of just take the heat for it. But there's nothing to watch. It's just a painful. Both of these offenses are completely painful. I agree with you with the injuries to the offensive line and the quarterbacks. I have these two teams as the last. I picked New England just because they're at home, and it looks like Miami is kind of just like given up on the season. And New England's been competitive in some of the games. I mean, they were competitive. Obviously, they beat Cincinnati. They were competitive against Seattle at home. So maybe they'll, come into this game and be prepared and play. Miami's short week. Now they're going on the road. I just don't see any fight in Miami right now. And maybe New England has some fight. But, I mean, this game is going to be 9-6, somebody. And I don't want to watch this game.
Yeah, I don't think coaches want to watch this game. It's just how bad it is. If you're the Dolphins, you rip the Band-Aid off and try to trade Hill while he still has some value. I think if you're confident that Tua doesn't return, then yes. But I saw a report saying that the Dolphins are targeting a Week 8 return for Tua. I don't know how they know that so far in advance, but
by Week 8 they might have 2 wins.
Yeah, maybe they can rally. Maybe they can rally and go on a winning streak or something with Tua, but I don't know. I doubt it. And plus, like another concussion, then like who knows how long he's gonna be out. So maybe you do rip the Band-Aid off. In my mock draft, I had the Dolphins taking Carson Beck.
Here's the question: what would Kansas City give up right now for Tyreek Hill?
Oh my God, everything. They have nothing at receiver. So yeah, I saw. I think Robert Griffin on Twitter was saying, "Oh, the Chiefs should trade for what's his name, Devontae Adams."
Devontae, yeah. There's no way the Raiders are trading Devontae to the Chiefs.
I know. And I replied, I'm like, yeah, it's a great idea for the Raiders to give the Chiefs a 3-peat there. Like, why would they just do that? I don't know. I mean, I expect Adams to be traded, but not to the Chiefs. I heard. I was listening to a podcast today. Someone mentioned DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs.
DeAndre Hopkins is hurt. He's always hurt.
He is hurt. I mean, he had a nice game in Week 3. He is injured, but he's still better than what they have now. He could take like the Rashee Rice role as the intermediate guy, I think, and they wouldn't have to give up like pretty much anything for him. So, and I think they went after him a couple years ago where they tried to sign him or something or trade for him. But I think that's a good option. Maybe Amari Cooper. So yeah, we'll see. They have to make a move. Jacoby Brissett game. There you go. That's the angle. Do you think Rodgers can figure the cap out the trade for Adams? That's what everyone wants to put in Adams to the Jets. I just don't know how it's going to happen. I think Adams goes to the Steelers personally. The Steelers really try to get Brandon Ayuk in the offseason, so maybe they get Adams instead. Will McDaniel get another quarterback off the clearance rack at Walmart for this game against the Patriots? Might as well just have a tryout. Like, who knows? It could be better than the guys they have now.
Everybody's forgetting that Tyler Huntley was a Pro Bowler.
That's true. Yeah.
No Pro Bowler on this team.
Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley. All right. Last of the early games, Browns at the Redskins. I mentioned that earlier that the Bears might be the most overrated team in the NFL, but it might be the Redskins as well. I had someone tell me on Twitter today when it was 2 days ago when I posted my power rankings. They said that, and I mentioned how bad the Redskins defense was, and the guy was like, "Oh, it doesn't matter how bad the defense is. Jaden Daniels is that great." I'm like, "Well, I don't know. When the Redskins play,
Where do you have Washington in your power ratings?
so I moved them up way too. I wouldn't move them way too high. I put them at ninth, but that was a mistake. I think they should be like 15th or 16th. I think
So I actually have them at 16.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And I love this team. So you say they're overrated, yet you have them at 9.
Yeah,
I love this team. I'm going to continue betting this team every single week until they prove me wrong. And I have them at 16. So I think I have them properly rated.
Yeah.
I have them, just for context, I have them tied with Dallas. That's my 15-16.
Okay.
I have them tied with Dallas. That's assuming Parsons and Dexter Lawrence are playing. I have them right behind the Jets and the Seahawks and right ahead of Pittsburgh and Tampa. So I think I have them properly rated, and I'm going to continue betting them. And now we'll talk about why in a few minutes. But I've been, first of all, I really like Jaden Daniels in college. He was one of the guys who made me a lot of money every single week. Live betting the over, live betting the team over, continuing to live bet the team over. And he has been unbelievable the last 2 weeks. I was on them last week plus 3.5, and I kind of said to myself when I took the pick, I said, I know I'm taking a public dog right now. I know all the professionals are on Arizona, but I know their Washington defense is horrendous, but I can't get off this offense. I love this offense. I love the way they're playing. They're playing hard. This guy is completing passes. He's moving around in the pocket. Assuming hopefully he doesn't get injured and he continues to play, it's been such a joy to watch him play. And he's been amazing. And I think this line is short, but let me hear your analysis first, because you mentioned they're overrated. So
okay,
I want to hear why you like Cleveland.
Well, yeah, we'll disagree on this one, I guess. I love Jane Daniels, and I also liked him in college, but and as proof, I bought his legendary Rainmakers card. Rest in peace, Rainmakers. But no, I want to see how. My response to that guy on Twitter was, I want to see how this team responds when they don't play a bad defense and they can't score on every possession like they are. So the EPA rankings of the defenses they played so far this year: 21st, 22nd, 27th, and 30th. Like, they have not played a team in the top half of defense. And the Browns are 12th. Now Myles Garrett's not 100%, but he still had a good game last week, and he had a great game the week before. I think he has a really nice matchup here against the Redskin tackles, who have not really been challenged this year. It just feels like they haven't really played against a great edge rush, except for week 2 against the Giants, when you had Burns and Thibodeau. But that was the game where Daniels just like threw short nonstop. So he might have to do the same thing here, just like try to move the chains methodically and like not get any big plays here, because it feels like Garrett just has such a big advantage. And with Cleveland, and you mentioned Washington, how bad their defense is. They're 32nd, dead last in EPA. Their secondary is just awful. I think Amari Cooper could have just an amazing game. And Deshaun Watson, like, everyone loves to hate him. And of course, he just sucks for the most part. But last week, I thought he had a decent game. Now, I know Max Crosby was out, but still, that Raider defense is better than this Redskin defense. And so if this trend continues, if it wasn't a fluke, then he could have his best game yet, maybe as a Brown. I think that he and Cooper could go off. The Redskin run defense is not good. Zach Moss ran all over them on Monday night, despite the loss with Cincinnati. So I think Jerome Ford could have a good game. My only concern here for the Browns is that I just worry about their offensive line missing 3 starters, but they could get Jedrick Wills or Jack Conklin back. Like, they've been like iffy to play, and like maybe this is the week at least one of them comes back. If one of them comes back, I think I like Cleveland a lot. If both come back, I will love the Browns. I just feel like this line is too high. You said you think this line's short. It's like 3.5. I don't know. Like, the Redskins have no home field advantage.
I think it's down to 3 right now.
It's down to 3. Okay, so yeah, like, the Redskins have no home field advantage. Just give them
3 minus 20, 3 minus 18.
Okay.
So right now it's shading towards. It's interesting. I mean, we'll see tomorrow night where Jay Corrigan of Westgate puts out this line.
Mm-hmm.
If he puts out 3.5, that means he thinks it's going to shade more towards 3.5. Okay. So I'm curious to see where the lines come out 3.5 over the next 2 days, because the lines have basically been bet right now into place, and they're not going to move much between now and probably Friday, Saturday.
Mhm.
So where the contest lines come out, given the minus 20 number, will be indicative of what the books think or where they think the action will be.
Yeah. Yeah. So last thing here. Like I said, I think this line's too high. The EPA numbers say this should be Redskins minus 2.5. The advanced spread was -1, so this line moved 2.5 initially. Now two. So I think too much of an overreaction here. The Redskins beat the Cardinals. Like, it's not that difficult to do. So I want to see how the Redskins do against a good defense in the top half of the league, and this is their big test. And yeah, I could definitely be wrong here. So tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why you like the
I can tell you why you're wrong. You're right. Watson played much better last week. There was one big pass play, touchdown pass to Cooper that was called back on penalty. So he did have a better game. And actually, 2 weeks ago, he had a better game as well. They shot themselves in the foot. They missed an extra point. So otherwise, they could have possibly tied the game late on fourth down. So they could have been a tie game. Right after the 2-minute warning, he wasn't ready for the snap. So that kind of cost them a play. But they definitely played better last week. If they get guys back, I mean, guys on the offensive line are huge. Chubb's not going to play. I know his window for return was now open, I believe, for 21 days. I think I saw that somewhere today.
Yeah.
And but he's not going to play in this game. And even if he did, he's not going to affect the line right now. Really, to me, it comes down to Conklin, Wills. If they're missing all these pieces on the offensive line, that's a problem. They can't run the football. Their offense has been pathetic for the most part. It looked a little bit better last week, but I'm not overly concerned because I look at this game, what Washington did 2 weeks ago against Cincinnati, and I know Cincinnati defense is not as good, and that game was more of a shootout. I'm not expecting Washington to put up 38 points, but I think Washington could put up 24 to 27 points, and I don't see Cleveland putting up more than 20, 23 points, even against a poor defense. I mean, Washington's defense last week was very, very good against a much, much better offense in Arizona than what they're going to face this week. So when I look at lines, when I look at my power ratings and make spreads, I actually bet this last week because I was shocked. When I saw one, that was one of the couple of bets that I looked at. I mean, I generally try not to bet 10 days in advance, given injuries and whatnot, but I looked at that line and I thought that was a gross overreaction. Like right now, I have Cleveland as a -2, and I have Washington as a plus 0.5. So, just above an average team. I told you I have them at number 16 in the league. So the way I work my power ratings, all things being equal, I have Washington as a 2.5-point favorite. And then I deduct points based on injuries. Now, I'm deducting nothing for Garrett. I'm going to assume Garrett's going to play, and if he's playing, he's fine. Is he 100%? No, but I'm not going to deduct any points from the spread. Njoku doesn't matter to me. Chubb certainly doesn't matter to me right now. It really, to me, comes down to the offensive line. If they're missing multiple players, that's a real concern. So I take that line. If I deduct 1 or 2 points, that line goes from 2.5 to maybe 3.5 or 4. Plus, I add 1.5. I use 1.5 for home field advantage. Except for Chargers, every team to me gets 1.5. I know some are better than others. Obviously, when the cold weather comes out, we make some adjustments with Buffalo, with Green Bay, etc. Minnesota has a loud place to play, but right now I'm using 1.5. So Washington at home to me is 2.5 points better. I add 1.5, that's 4. If I deduct anything for the offensive line, that takes me to 5, 5.5, maybe 6. And then I have an algorithm that sets up my lines. Anything over a field goal between 3 and 7 automatically deducts a 0.5 point. So to me, my computer number here is 4.5, 5. And if I adjust it mentally, just looking, okay, 4.5, 5 feels a little high, I can make that 3.5, 4. Anything to me over a field goal to me would be the right number and a number where I don't want to bet it. 3, I take it all day long. 2.5 to me is a no-brainer. We asked before, like, who would you take in Survivor? If I had Washington available and I would between Washington and Chicago, there's no question I'd be on Washington. And on Sunday night, I went on to FanDuel and I played Washington over 8.5 wins. And you can still play Washington over 8.5 wins. And even if you don't like this week, I think Washington, if they're healthy, again, anytime you're playing season-long plays, for overs especially, it's all about health. The minute your quarterback goes down, your bet goes out the window. I think I saw this line moved up to 125 or -130. Actually hit -140 yesterday, and then it kind of ticked back down a little bit. But I bet it at -115 Sunday night, over 8.5 wins, looking at Washington's schedule. And I love it. I think this team is a potential playoff team. I love what I'm seeing. Maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, and they've played well against bad defenses. And they're off, last week, everyone was saying to me, why are you on Washington right now? Clear, you're backing a team that just showed up great, short week. big game on the road, and now you're backing them a week later. I'm like, yeah, I'm just drawn in. I'm really just drawn into Jaden Daniels and what I'm seeing from this offense that I really like. And the Browns, to me, even though they're playing a little better, if this line were 4.5, I'd have pause. But I think Washington wins this game by a touchdown or more.
Interesting. So a couple things there. I think what I might do, I like your call to bet the Redskins over. What I might do is see if I'm right about this game. If they lose to the Browns, I might hammer the over, which will get a better line, obviously, after this week.
By the way, they still have home games. They still have home games after this game, and I don't expect them to beat Baltimore next week. They have home games: Carolina, Chicago, Tennessee, and Atlanta. So they have 4 very winnable home games. They also play Dallas and Philly, of course, at home, and they are always competitive against Philly. Even when they're not good, they're competitive against Philly. They play Pittsburgh. Okay, that's an interesting game. They play the Giants on the road. It's a lot of winnable games on this schedule. A lot of games where they're either going to be favored or very short underdogs. So to me, over 6 more wins, especially if I get this. If they win this game, I don't know that the line goes to 9.5. It probably stays at 8.5 with some bad juice. You probably get 8.5, like minus 60, something like that. Or maybe 9.5 with juice to the under. But I like this team a lot. And this is definitely one of my highlighted picks. At 3 or better, this is for sure making my card.
Something that can help that win total is if they keep winning these games, maybe they pull the trigger and the trade deadline, get like a better cornerback or a pass rusher to really help them out. So I could really see that help.
Yeah, they could use Montez Sweat right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Someone like that. So yeah, I think, like I said, I'll be looking at the Redskins win total over, especially if they lose this game. But I like the Browns.
Well, if they lose the game, wait until the following week.
Yeah, do you think a loss to Baltimore really affect that? Do you think it'll move the line?
No, I don't think it'll. You're right. They're certainly going to be underdogs in that game. But especially if Baltimore, and you got to see what happens situationally. If Baltimore loses against Cincinnati, I certainly like Baltimore better the following week, home against Washington. But if Baltimore wins this game, it's not a big game. Although Lamar against the NFC, what is he, 21-1?
Yeah,
just something crazy. So I don't expect Washington to win next week. I don't know how the books will move the line, how they affect that. Because my number next week, I made my lines ready for next week. What is that line here? This is actually, I made the line next week 6.5, and the line opens 7. Yeah. So the look ahead for Baltimore is -7. It's actually, I think it's the biggest line on the board. It is.
Yeah, there's not a bunch of short lines next week.
Yeah, so I made that line 6.5. So I feel like I'm right in line with what the market is. Like you said, they're overrated. I think I have them as an average number 16. I don't think I'm overrating them. I just really like them, and I'm going to continue to bet them, especially at 3. Like I said, if I had them number 9 and my power ratings, number 9 would make them, plus 2.5. That would have made my line closer to a touchdown.
Yeah.
That would be crazy. That's too much.
So that is where I realized I erred in my power rankings, because I made my lines and it came out to be exactly Redskins -7. And I'm like, wait a second, something's not right here. And
you have the Redskins overrated.
Yes, I overrated my own overrated. So I did downgrade them mentally. I didn't update the power rankings on the site, but I did put them 9th. And just looking at the defense, they can't be 9th with the 32nd ranked defense. The EPA has them 17th, so they're right in line with where you have them. And I think the number 1 offense, number 32 defense, you just average them, you get 16. I think it makes the most sense. So first and goal.
By the way, if you don't like Dallas, and Dallas has injuries, and Dallas has a very tough schedule coming up: Pittsburgh, Detroit, San Francisco, Atlanta, Philly, Houston, and then at Washington. So Dallas has got a really, really tough month ahead, especially without Dexter Lawrence and possibly Parsons being banged up. And who knows what's going on with Philly right now between A.J. Brown. I'm assuming that Devontae Smith will be back from a concussion, but A.J. Brown hasn't been there, and Lane Johnson's been out. So that team, and Hurts has looked horrible. So when you look at that team, their defense doesn't look good. Sirianni doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. He's another coach that's on the hot seat. Washington is 3-1 on the division. Now, for me, I'd rather play over 8.5 wins. -20, call it a day. Give me 8.5 wins, win 9 games. They don't have to win the division. Maybe Dallas turns it around. Philly, figures it out. Although I don't think they will. I don't think it's impossible for Washington to win the division here. And I'm getting 3-1. It's not a bad look. If you like Washington, 3-1 is a great number. But like I said, I'm not into give me the odds 3-1. Give me my 8.5, lay $1.20 and call it a day.
I love talking to you because I always get like hyped up betting these in season futures. So I would be looking at that. The 3-1 sounds great to win the division. I do think the Eagles will figure it out, but I hate Dallas, and I think I'll try to bet they're under. By the way, did you see the Lions at Cowboys? I'm sure you did. The Lions at Cowboys line next week. I was kind of shocked that it was sticker shock at first, but then I was like, yeah.
I was not sure. I made it 2.5. My number's 2.5. My spread, my adjusted spread stays at 2.5. The look ahead was 3. It feels right.
Oh no, I'm not saying it's not right. I think it is right, but it was kind of like sticker shock based on what we had last year with the Lions and Cowboys. I think the Cowboys were favored in that game, so it's kind of crazy how things have changed so quickly for these teams.
Was that week? That was week what? Week 17.
Yeah, that was the game.
Cowboys Lions. That was a Saturday night game. Dallas was favored by 6.
Yeah, exactly. See, exactly. Yeah, like how much is that?
Dallas. The closing line was 4.5.
Right, and so
I had Detroit in both of my contests.
Yeah, so that was a 7.5 point swing from last year. That's what I'm talking about. Like I was so initially surprised, but then I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That was the game that was Dan Skipper game where he didn't report as eligible.
Yep.
So it's funny. Yeah, like I said, funny how things have changed so quickly.
Yeah, but Dallas is significantly worse than they were last year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And another thing you said, you give 1.5 points for teams at home. I think that's about right. I give 1 point for on average. Like sometimes I give 1.5. Like for Redskins and Chargers, I'll give 0. So. Like the Redskins I don't know why they have no home field advantage at all. Like it's just awful. Yeah,
Washington D.C.
Yeah, I guess.
Where's their stadium? Is in Arlington, Virginia? Is it Arlington?
I don't know, but they don't they've had no home field advantage at all.
Yeah, they haven't had home field advantage for a long time. But I think there's excitement with Washington now, so perhaps fans are going.
Could be. Yeah, you're right. First of all, says this is where you sell on the Redskins. They have beaten up on bottom 5 defensive units for weeks. Browns get offensive linemen back here. Well, we don't know that for sure, but if they do, I agree.
Yeah, that's something you have to pay attention to. If they had Conklin and Wills back and there's no offensive line downgrade, then, okay.
Yes, so definitely we'll be looking to that. But I will be on the Browns. Just depends. The unit count depends on the offensive line injuries for sure. Browns just lost to the Raiders, who were down Adams and Crosby. Yeah, but John, remember the Raiders are a great team. I was high on the Raiders heading into the year, and Andy, when I had lunch with Andy when I entered the Super Contest, and like Andy was like, "Oh, what do you think about the Raiders?" Because obviously local team. I was like, "I love the Raiders," and so like when he was on last week, I was like, "My Las Vegas Raiders." I think I'm higher I was higher on the Raiders than anyone in the world heading into the year, like even higher than Mark Davis. So I don't know. Well, they're 2-2 right now, I guess. Let's see here. Washington not going to keep winning 2-score games. Yeah, I mean they'll be closer for sure. I mean they almost lost to the Giants. If the Giants had their kicker, they should have
lost to the Giants.
Yeah, that was. Of course, I had that in Super Contest. Pretty tilted. Quacky lost his money on Bo Nix DFS plays. I don't know if he actually played Bo Nix. He did text me before the 1:00 games that he's playing Little Jordan Humphrey. So maybe he stacked him with Nix. I try to get him off of it. I'm like, dude, play Paris Campbell at 3K instead. Jets are 3-1 to win the AFC East. Is that true?
The Jets 3-1 to win the AFC East. That I don't know. I can quickly check.
That's interesting. I mean, the Bills obviously should be the favorites, but there could be Josh Allen injury that gives you an easy win because like it's not like the Dolphins and Patriots are competing, so you just have the runner up there, and plus the Jets host the Bills in Week 6, and the Jets historically have done well against the Bills in the Meadowlands.
That is correct. Jets are 3-1. Buffalo's -250.
That's interesting. I have some interest in that 3-1.
If you have enough money lying around these accounts, you can bet both of them because you won't lose.
It's true.
You can't lose laying 250 and taking back 3.
Yeah,
The only way you lose is if Miami or New England come back and beat you.
that's interesting.
I wouldn't tie up that kind of money. There'd be no reason to do that for the next 4 months. But
Yeah.
if you're playing a basketball game live and you're laying and you get a 3-1 and a minus 250, you can arbitrage that and not pay attention. So keep that in mind when you're watching and live betting basketball.
That's funny. Yeah.
That's what got me kicked out of Caesars.
Oh, Caesar. Okay, yeah. You can get futures at Caesars, FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, probably some other books too. All right, let's get to the late afternoon games. The first one is my Las Vegas Raiders at the Denver Broncos here. So the Raiders dominate the Broncos. They've won their last 8 against Denver. I don't know how much you factor that in, but I think there is something to that. These divisional games can be funky, and sometimes one team owns another for one reason or another. So I think there's some legitimacy to that. And I think the Broncos at this point could be overrated. Like people have suddenly forgotten that they were 0-2 once upon a time. They've won 2 in a row, but it feels like they got both of their opponents in like the worst case possible for them. Like the Buccaneers in week 3, they were sleepwalking through that game. They had just beaten Detroit in a revenge game. And then the following week they had the Eagles in another playoff rematch. They'd playoff rematch, game against Broncos, a non-conference team, and then divisional playoff rematch. Like, do you think like the Buccaneers were maybe not focused at all for Denver?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the Buccaneers were. I wouldn't factor anything into that win. And then last week the Jets had Denver, and then they had to go to London. So I don't think they're focused on that. Right, and it's pouring, and they're coming off a divisional win on national TV or national streaming, whatever you want to call it. So I think the Jets were in focus as well. So the Broncos got basically 2 free wins against teams that were napping. And really, I mean, if Tampa and the Jets tried their hardest, I think the Broncos could be 0-4 right now. So the fact that the Broncos are favored here against the Raiders, I like the Raiders, even though it looks like the public is on the Raiders. It's not great, but and I wish we were getting +3. So I don't know if I'm going to bet this one, but I do think the Raiders are the right side, at least hopefully, because I have over 6.5 wins. So what do you think about this game?
I have the Raiders 26th and the Broncos at 29th, a 1.5 apart. Take away my 1.5 for home field. Injuries aside, I think the game's a pick 'em. If you take Crosby out of the picture, he's one of the few non-quarterbacks that I think are worth a point. Very few players throughout the league, unless it's like a cluster situation, like Philadelphia has no receivers right now, or Cleveland, the situation where they're missing multiple offensive linemen. Crosby really does make a difference. This is one of those games where you could see like a 17-16 type of game. A lot of field goals. I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, it was a 17-16 game, and I think Denver had missed an extra point. Week 1, Denver had missed an extra point. So this is like similar to Atlanta, where these teams, you get these back and forth field goal games where I'm definitely not laying 2.5. I don't have an inclination of who to pick. I'm assuming Adams is not going to play. I'm assuming Crosby will. And if that's the case, I would lean Raiders with 2.5, but I have no reason. I'm not going to make the mistake like I did in week 2, or week 3, I should say, when I picked the Raiders to beat Carolina. I'm not picking the Raiders off of a win. This team wins a game, no interest. They lose a game, maybe I have interest the following week, depending on where the line is. But I'm not going to take the Raiders off of the win, and I'm not going to take Bo Nix as a favorite when the guy you said before was negative passing yardage, and that's not with sacks. That's literally with throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage for the tune of -7.5 yards. Rain or no rain, that's crazy. So I'm not laying points with Bo Nix. I'm not betting the Raiders off of a win. I'm not betting the Raiders if Crosby's not playing, and I don't know if he's going to play or how healthy he is. So another easy pass for me.
Makes sense. Crosby being in, obviously a big impact, although I went off the Raiders last week because Crosby was out, so I ended up regretting that. First of all, says so many distractions here with Vegas. Coach is a joke. It's going to be an ugly game. Denver fat and happy off back-to-back road wins. Too many intangibles passed. I think that's the correct way.
That's the handicap. There you go.
Yeah. By the way, I got the urge to print 7 of 15 for -7 yards on a T-shirt, and just because that's like the most like unique stat or stat line I've ever seen. The other one, this is a game back in like 2004. Jerome Bettis, I don't know if you remember this game. He had 4 carries for 1 yard and
3 touchdowns.
Yes, against the
Raiders.
I
remember.
Yep.
Is that a playoff game?
No, that was a week 1 against the Raiders.
Week 1 against okay.
It's like how's that even happened? But
yeah, I remember something like that.
Yeah. All right. Next game, Cardinals at the 49ers. This is the first of 2 the first of 2 games where the favorites are going to be potentially looking ahead to Thursday night. The 49ers play the Seahawks on Thursday night, and big favorites heading into Thursday. Generally, just a bad idea to play on them. You got to wonder how focused the Niners are going to be. They're coming off a blowout win, and then they play the Cardinals, who they just saw get demolished by the Redskins. So feels like if I'm the Niners, to think like, we can win this easily, and then focus on Seattle, just as like their primary competitor right now in the division, with the Rams dealing with injuries and the Cardinals just sucking. So it feels like a look ahead here for the 49ers. And the Niners just clobbered the Patriots, but the Cardinals are better than the Patriots despite what happened last week. So I think they can hang around the Niners. The Niners have a lot of defensive injuries. Fred Warner got hurt last week. If he's out, you mentioned guys not in clusters who could really affect the line.
Fred Warner is valuable. Fred Warner is my favorite defensive player in the league. I'm a diehard Niner fan.
Yeah.
Doesn't affect my ability to pick. It's actually weird. When I pick against the Niners, I'm pretty bad. And I'm on the Cardinals like you are. When I do pick them to win or cover, I'm usually pretty good. Some strange with me with Niner games. But Fred Warner, and every single week I find myself more and more amazed by the things that he does. Against Minnesota, he single-handedly made that game close. He had one of those peanut punch fumbles. He had a pick in the red zone. His pick last week, how many linebackers make that pick and then how many of them get up and run it back for a touchdown? The guy is just phenomenal. He, to me right now, and there's a couple of maybe TJ Watt, Parsons, Garrett, Warner, to me are, and maybe Aiden Hutchinson's in that mix too with what he's been doing, but top 5 defensive player. And it's very unique to be able to affect the game, not being an edge rusher, the way he affects the game as a Mike linebacker. I can't get over week in, week out the amount of value he brings to the field. It's really mind-boggling what he brings. And if he's not there against a running quarterback like Kyler, that's a huge loss. I don't know how many points that's worth. Obviously he's not worth 3-4 points to the line, but he's definitely a valuable piece to that. And if he's not there, that's a huge, huge loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just one linebacker. It's basically a cluster because Dre Greenlaw is out as well. You also have Javon Hargrave gone.
Hargrave's out for the season.
Yeah, Hargrave's out. So Eric
Armstead also missed last week. Their safety, their all-pro safety from 2 years ago. Right. He was out last week.
Yeah. So and then they lost Armstead in the offseason. So they were counting on Hargrave just making up for that, and he's out. Then like you said, Hufanga, maybe he returns, but we'll see the injury report here. But if the Niners are missing Warner, it's just a big deal here. So I'm on Arizona as you said.
For some reason I was thinking over the last few years, like these games, I guess historically maybe the Niners Cardinals games were close, and then I look back in the last 4 games, the Niners actually killed them. The last 4 games were double digit, not just 10. We're talking 18, 20 plus point wins. But Arizona off the blowout loss, the Niners, I think the best thing here that you said in the handicap was the Seattle game on Thursday night on the road. Shanahan with a tendency sometimes to kind of give up these late leads like he did 2 weeks ago, somehow, some way to the Rams. Again, not counting Warner, any sort of loss here. I have the Niners and the Bills tied second in my power rating. So I have the Niners as high as you can basically make them. And I have the Cardinals at number 20, which is below average. So I have them below a 0. And my line in this game, even with home field advantage, comes in at 6.
Yep.
So I see 7.5. Auto pick on Carolina at 7.5.
We're on the same page there. I have my line for this is 6 exactly. So glad we're on the same side there.
This is one of those games where now it's 7.5 on a Tuesday. By the time we roll, this is like the Chargers last week. By the time we roll around to Thursday, this line is going to be 7 in the contest.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the Cardinals and we're going to push. So
Exactly.
this is one of those like I can't get off of that pick.
Yeah. Something on you mentioned the previous results. So last year, the first game between these teams, Josh Dobbs was the quarterback.
Okay,
so
the game doesn't count.
Yeah, and then the second meeting, it ended up being a Niners win. It was like I want to say like 19 or 21 points or something. But that game was super close for a while. It was like the Niners just pulled away in like the end of the third quarter or fourth quarter. Like I remember it was like very tight heading into halftime. I remember thinking like maybe Arizona might pull the upset. But yeah, the Niners just really pulled away. So yeah, I mean I think yeah, we both agree that they could be distracted here a little bit. First of all, says this line feels short to me. Zona looked lost with that trade. McBride should be back. Yeah, it's another one. Yeah, McBride was just a big loss for them last week. Arizona's offense can't be that bad. Niners feel human, so beat the Jets week 1. And New England, how good is this team? So, I mean, you have them tied for second.
How good is this team? Let's be fair. I mean, the team is still very good, right? They're not well coached in game. This is another team, and it makes me crazy, that kicks field goals from the 5. That punts on 4th and 2 from the 45. And these things make no sense. But to his credit, Purdy has been unbelievable. When you watch this guy play now, he's making plays. And he doesn't have McCaffrey, who I know some professionals like, oh, running back's not worth anything to the spread. McCaffrey is the best football player in the league, best offensive football player in the league. This guy is unbelievable when he gets out of the space, not just running the ball, but really receiving the ball and the choice routes that he runs. Mason has been running the ball nicely behind Trent Williams, but he is a non-factor in the passing game. McCaffrey is a huge factor in the passing game. Without him, Purdy's been great. Purdy's making plays. Shanahan schemes things up very well. The weakness really is the in-game field goals and the in-game punts. And then the secondary, when the team is up by 10, 14 points, they're giving up big plays in the passing game. So this team is very good. Let's be fair. This team is definitely a top 5 team. They're not an average team. They're not a slightly above average team. They're a good team. They're a top contending team. And Arizona's slightly below average. Just because the Niners beat the Patriots, they killed the Patriots. Just because they killed the Jets, they blew a game against the Rams. They blew it. I mean, that game was over. It was 14-0. It was 24-14. And they kind of went to sleep with a lead. And that's too bad. And it is what it is. And then the Vikings just, they couldn't beat the Vikings last year. They couldn't beat the scheme. That game was not as close as the final score indicates, but they lost to a very good Vikings team. And, too early to say where the Niners really are, but to me, they're still a top team in the league. They're still a Super Bowl contender, and they're better than Arizona. But are they 7.5 points better where they have a game 4 days later, a divisional game on the road? Are they 7.5 points better when they're missing defenders all over the field? So to me, no, the line is a little bit long, and I think this game is going to be a close game.
Yeah, and Trent Williams got hurt in that Rams game too. So
Trent Williams didn't get hurt. I think Trent Williams went out for an IV. I think he was more tired in that game.
Okay.
I don't think he was injured in that game.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe he just was tired because I don't think he was like as effective when he returned. So I think that.
I know he went to the locker room for an IV during the game.
Yeah. So that I think that affected them too. John Sanders with the 411 super chat. Thank you so much, John. 49ers and Seahawks 6-point.
Stay away from favorite 6-point teasers, John.
I think it's okay to have one. I think it's okay to have one in there. Like we have
save your money on 6-point favorites teasers. You will lose money long term.
We had the Chiefs last week from -7 to -1. I think you can be selective in that. I would not do this. I think one of them loses outright.
Yeah, there are better teaser candidates if you play underdogs going up than favorites going down.
Yeah, going up through 3, 6, and 7. We mentioned the Buccaneers earlier, going from 2.5 to 8.5. So I think that seems like a great,
You mentioned, you like the Bengals. The Bengals are 2.5.
Bengals, yeah, going
Texans. Whoever the underdog is in the Buffalo Houston game, getting 7.5 points there is a nice play.
Yeah,
but you don't want to play. Especially a 6-point favorite, by the way. I don't want to go too deep into math right now, but you don't want to play a 6-point favorite down to pick 'em. You want to play the 7.5s over a touchdown to under a field goal, not the 6.5s to a pick 'em. You're better off mathematically just betting the money line, finding the best book that has the money line that you like, and playing the money line straight, and not worrying about the other team. Trust me when I tell you, the math is in your favor in that scenario. Otherwise, don't play 6-point teasers, 6.5, 6 or 6.5 point favorites on a teaser does not make financial sense or mathematical sense.
Yeah, because if you kind of like the factor in all like the probabilities of outcomes, I mean 7 is the second most likely result of any NFL game. So if you don't get the 7, like it just really hurts you just math wise. You know, like Evan said, like the only way a teaser makes sense mathematically is if you get 3, 6, and 7. Well, you get 7, you get 6, obviously. So if you get 3 and 7 in your teaser, with 3, 6, and 7 being the 3 most likely results of any NFL game, like that's why it's so good. If you don't get those, you might as well, like you said, just bet the money line or just bet the line, whatever it is. So yeah, I totally agree. Also, one thing, taking this teaser prevents you from potentially middling. So what you could do is like, and I forgot to do this because things are crazy here trying to put my son to bed. But something and like by the second quarter, I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. Like, why didn't I do this? So I had last week I had Chiefs -1, and then I had Bills +8.5. So I had them at different times. So like once the Chiefs won, I had an opportunity to middle the game. So I could have bet the Ravens -2.5, try to get the result in between the Ravens winning by 3 and 8. And so I could have middled that, like, and it would have been a nice result. And at the same time, hedging too. Yeah, so that I think that's why I would prefer to take the first leg with Tampa. And if Tampa, they're down to 1.5 now. So if like Tampa covers the 7.5, then you can hedge. For example, if you take Cincinnati +8.5, you can bet Baltimore -2.5 at like maybe half the unit count and like try to middle that. I think that's like a good strategy.
One thing with teasers to add in real quick, pay attention to different books offer different prices.
Yep.
I have access to multiple books. The best one that I have on a 6-point teaser is -10, which
Oh wow, which one?
rarely exists anywhere. Most are now -20. Sometimes you'll see -25. Mathematically, they just don't make sense anymore. If you're playing at -10 and you're playing dogs from 1.5, 2.5 up, great. If you really like Tampa and you want that action on Tampa, you can wheel Tampa with a bunch of different games. Tampa with Cincinnati, Tampa with Houston, Tampa with the Raiders if they're 2.5 up to 8.5, Tampa with San Francisco, Tampa with so whoever it may be that you like. You kind of wheel it around. You win Tampa, and now you don't have to hedge. Now you're basically playing a straight bet. You have 3 or 4 of them live. And if you lose Tampa, you lose. You're out. I mean, that's your play on Tampa. But again, look at your odds, and I don't find value in 6-point teasers anymore.
Which sportsbook has the -110? Because I
There are
know
some offshore accounts, some offshore books. Costa Rica.
Which one? Because I know Bookmaker has 120.
There's a site that's fantasystake.com has -110.
Okay.
There's another account, onebetter.com, I think is -15. It might be -20 now, but I don't really look at them much anymore on the 6-pointers. I know I have friends in various places that call me on a Saturday night. Can you place, can you box so-and-so with 5 different games? And like, no, stop calling me on Saturday night at 2:00 in the morning to place teasers for you, 6-point teasers where you're wheeling one team. Like, I'm not interested. Save your money.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, yeah. So yeah, -120 is the best I've seen with Bookmaker and DraftKings, but it's nice to get the 110. That's definitely huge. Let's see. We have a couple comments. We have Mason is an effing beast. Kittle is back. Debo's back. They're going to front run Arizona. Washington just beat the brakes off them. Divisional rivals who lost to the Rams. Chip on the shoulder game for the 49ers.
I don't think it's a chip on the shoulder game for the 49ers.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, agreed. Let's see. I'll lie about this. Arizona goes up a touchdown early.
Okay. Now we're talking. Now you're making sense. Now, when you're live betting, you're playing the in-game because the team goes up in the beginning. That's a way to take advantage of some of the line movement and the algorithms that the sportsbooks have on live.
Yeah. 12-man full, Lamar, Gino, Henry, Kamara, Mason, Chubb, Rico, Roshan, Justice, Jamison, Higgins, AJ, Wicks, Kincaid. Any moves? See here. I mean, I think it's fine. I mean, AJ Brown's a big question mark if he comes back, which I think he will in week 6. I think you're going to be fine. I like that you got Wicks. I would not do anything. I think this looks like a good team to me. Maybe no, I was going to say like Lamar is injury prone, but you have Geno Smith who's been on fire. So yeah, no, I like your team. Good job with assembling that team. All right, so next game we have Packers at the Rams. I not to spoil anything here, but I got word from Quacky, who's our Saturday night co-host. He loves the Packers. The Rams, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They were truly horrendous. They kind of like revived DeAndre Swift's career because the Bears coaching staff, and I got burned on this. The Bears coaching staff said that they're going to get Roshan Johnson more involved. So I was like, oh, I'll take DeAndre Swift under rushing yards. And of course, he goes over. The Rams incapable of stopping him. So you got to think that Josh Jacobs is going to have a good game. Jordan Love, no longer rusty, is the second game back. So I think he's going to play better than he did last week. I just really dislike this Rams team. They got lucky against the 49ers. We talked about that. They could really be winless right now with a blowout loss to Arizona, a loss at Chicago. And they kept it close against the Lions. That's when they were healthy. They just have so many injuries. I like the Packers at -3. If it's 3.5, just to stay away. Just 3.5 is the worst spread in football. But I'm not rushing to bet this game either. I just feel like there's no value here. Do you have any take on this?
No, this is a hard game. When I saw the 3.5 initially, I was thinking, okay, underdog. I kind of made the line 2.5, 3. I agree with what you said. Love another week back. The line dropped from 3.5 to 3. At 3, I kind of lean more towards the Packers. I think they'll come back off the win. Oh, sorry, off the loss. I think they're, the Rams are just too beaten up. They're beaten up everywhere, and I don't have a lot to add. I don't have a lot of insight on this game right now. Not a game I would bet either direction. Wouldn't tease the game. Wouldn't bet the game. And I guess I would lean Packers to win. Don't really have much to add to it.
Yeah, no, not surprised. Locking any plays ball? Yeah, no, I have not. I will let you know if I do. NEC North might have 3 playoff teams. Yeah, Minnesota just came out of nowhere. Yeah. Let's see here. This line stinks to high hell. You can run the ball in Green Bay, and they might do it early and often. Green Bay's actually been good against the run, which is surprising because they couldn't stop it at all. Like in previous years, but they're actually, I think, 11th against the run, if I remember correctly. And as far as EPA is concerned, so that was kind of a surprise. I think it was like week 1 against Barkley they got burned, but ever since they've been better. All right. Anyway, Giants and Seahawks. This is the other leg of that potential look ahead with the Thursday night game. So I think one of these teams loses outright, and probably I think Seattle might make the most sense because they're coming off that short week and crazy travel here because week 2 they were at New England, so East Coast obviously, and then week 3 they fly back to Seattle. Week 4 they fly back to the East Coast and play a Monday night game, and then on a short week they travel back to the West Coast to play the Giants. And so I don't know. I feel like they might have a lot of jet lag at this point, and they might be looking ahead, like I said. And I'm not sure this team's good enough to be favored by 6. I love their offense, but their defense couldn't get a single stop. Like Jared Goff threw no incompletions. So I already did not like the run defense, but their pass defense was questionable. Also, offensively, Geno Smith tends to hold on to the ball a long time, so that could really benefit the Giants because I feel like the one thing the Giants do well is rush the passer with Brian Burns and Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. I worry about Malik Neighbors maybe being out, and I don't know if he's like one of your guys that like he's because he changes that team so dramatically. Like he's been unbelievable so far. Like if it wasn't for Jane Daniels, like he'd be running away with Offensive Rookie of the Year. So I like the Giants here to cover this, maybe even win outright, just because I think Seattle just might be so jet lagged and so distracted. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I agree. I have the Giants highlighted as one of my picks. I made the line 4.5. I obviously that assumes Neighbors plays. He has the extra time to clear a concussion protocol from last week. Obviously, he's huge. They need him in that game. He's their playmaker. It's a terrible spot for Seattle, who really played well last night. Seattle, DK fumbles on the 35-yard line trying to get a couple extra yards. It was a 1st and 10 play. He had a 12, 13-yard pickup, and he's reaching for another yard.
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't fumble and they go in and score on that possession, that game's, I mean, that's a 2-score game. That's a tie game. I mean, that's a 14-point swing basically right there on that play. And to their credit, every time they were down 14, they scored a touchdown. They're down 14, they scored a touchdown. So they really kept pace throughout the game. I think they got one stop in the fourth quarter and had the ball where they had a chance to maybe cut it to 8 or 6. I forget what the score exactly was, but Gino played great last night, and they ran the ball great last night. I think they come into this game kind of exhale. All right, they played really well. They should have won. They're 3-1, and their game is next week. That game, divisional game, Niners home Thursday Night Football. That's the game they're ready for. There's no way they're gearing up and getting excited and really focusing now on the Giants. I love the Giants in this spot, assuming Neighbors plays. And also, Seattle was missing a whole bunch of defensive guys on the front. Yes, I think they were missing 3 guys that mattered. Again, do they each matter a point, half a point to the spread? Not really, but together. That's why their defense was so bad last night, especially against the run. And when they're missing an offensive lineman, they're missing Fant on the offensive line. So these guys, if they're questionable and kind of iffy to play in this game, they're not playing. These guys are going to wait to play on Thursday versus playing and then have a short week. So to me, the spot dramatically favors the Giants. And I really think that line, spot or no spot, I have Seattle right now 1 point better than an average team. I do give them a half a point deduction for an offensive line for missing a key offensive line player. And I have the Giants number 27. And that's with Neighbors being healthy. And I have the Giants right behind the Raiders. So maybe I'm wrong there. I have the Giants a point worse than I had Cleveland. And I liked the Giants 2 weeks ago against Cleveland. And I picked them in that week, and I avoided Cleveland in Survivor. So with where I have it, I have these teams about 4 points apart. Add a point and a half, maybe 2 points for Seattle. Takes me up to 5.5, 6. I deduct a point or a half a point for my Seattle offensive line injuries. I'm not deducting anything for the defense, and that takes me down to about 4.5, 4 points. Mm-hmm. So I just think 6 is a lot. 6 is a good key number. If this line were 4.5, I would still take the Giants. That's where I made the line. 6, no brainer for me. Giants, one of my 5. Not one of my definitely on the card, one of my top 5. Unless Neighbors doesn't play. If Neighbors doesn't play, I rethink my power rating. I rethink the number, and maybe I stay off of it. But I still, situationally, do not like Seattle in this spot.
You said your line is 4.5. Is that what you said?
My line is 4.5.
Okay, mine was 3.5. So we're kind of close. So yeah, well, we both think this line's too high. Chris, bringing up, it's another one of those weird situations with one team playing off Thursday night, Giants in the other are playing off Monday night. That's why I pulled up right here. Teams in this situation, the team coming off the Thursday night game with a much more rest, 26-18 against the spread, so covering 59% of the time.
Well, this will be the third week in a row that I'm betting the Giants, and I'm going to continue riding this team because I think they're undervalued. And I have them low in my rankings, but I think every week I'm finding like a point and a half, 2 points where, hey, they're underdogs by 6 against Cleveland. I think the Giants have a shot in that game. Let me take them. 5.5 against Dallas. They're at home. That line to me, last week I actually made that line. I think I made it like 3 against Dallas, and I thought that they should have covered. And again, another episode of a team kicking a short field goal or punting late in the game when they were down by a couple of points, needing touchdowns, not field goals. But getting that 4.5 to 6.5 point range with the Giants has been good to me. So I'm going to continue riding the Giants, and hopefully Neighbors plays and Seattle overlooks this game as they gear up for next week.
Yeah, Chris asking if we can modify this for underdogs. So 10-9 against the spread for underdogs. Underdogs is 6 or more, 5-4 against the spread. So it's a smaller sample size. You're still winning. Again, I wouldn't judge it just based on this, but
I'm not. The rest to me is not the factor here, and obviously that is a factor with the extra versus the short. To me, it's the next game.
Right.
Coming off of a good game, they played a good game. They didn't get killed. They played a good game, even though the score, obviously, they lost by double digits, but they played a respectable game. They played well. Gino played really well. I was very impressed. Throughout the game, I kept saying to myself, wow, that's a good throw. Nice throw, good throw, third down conversions. But they're playing the Niners on Thursday Night Football. They're not paying attention to the Giants right now.
Yeah, this is also something I don't really have a name for. I called it like the ladder theory. It tends to win a lot. It's when an underdog plays extremely well in 1 week, and like they don't win, but they come close to winning. And then the next week they're huge favorites. Like when they're huge favorites, the next week they tend to perform very poorly. This happened earlier this year when the Bengals gave it their all against the Chiefs and they lost. And then the next week they're 7.5-point favorites against the Redskins. They lose outright. And when that game came up, I'm like, it reminds me of last year when the Jaguars in week 2 played their hearts out against the Chiefs. They lost. It was close, and then they lost. And then the next week they're 9-point home favorites against the Texans, and they lost outright.
Yep.
It seems like this is just a really bad spot for the Seahawks.
Terrible spot. It is nothing to say about it other than the spot is the play.
Yeah. Seabaz, a few questions. Is CH worth a pickup? If you have room, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be used, but if you have room for him, yes. I wouldn't go cutting like anyone significant for him. Stream Kirk or Deshaun? I like Deshaun this week. I know he's been horrible, but that Redskins secondary is just brutal. Trey Sermon with a pickup. Yeah, I said before I spent 10% on Sermon this week. All right, so we go to the Sunday night game now. It's the Cowboys at the Steelers. This line is Steelers -2.5. I believe the advanced spread was radically different. It's Cowboys -1. So if you want to fade line movement here, you get some value with Dallas +2.5. But a lot of this, I think, is Micah Parsons being out, which is just a huge deal. Not just Parsons, but DeMarcus Lawrence as well. But then the Steelers lost their best offensive lineman, James Daniels. So I still say advantage for the Steelers. But if I'm on the Steelers, I'd like to have Suomalo back from injury. He's like the third lineman who's out, but he's been kind of iffy each week. If he plays, I think the Steelers are worth a bet potentially. I'm not crazy about either side here, though. Although the Cowboys are a publicly backed dog and extremely publicly backed, I think it's a good spot to fade Dallas, and maybe people just don't realize how bad this team is yet. They've gotten blown out twice this year, and their other wins were against the Giants, and the other game was in week 1 when the Browns were missing both tackles. Yeah. So I'm leaning toward Pittsburgh here. I'm not sure if I'm going to bet this game. What are your thoughts on this one?
I like Pittsburgh a lot, and it really comes down to if Parsons is not playing, this line should be at least 2.5, if not higher, 3. So I think the line is right at 3. I don't love it as much because Pittsburgh's not going to blow anybody out. But if Parsons doesn't play, that really will allow Fields to kind of run around and make plays with his legs, which is really what he's done. And he's also been pretty good getting Pickens downfield. But to me, more importantly, is the defense. Dallas has no run game at all. So they're lining up, dropping back to pass. Their offensive line has been a disaster. The rookie on the side, I think, what's his name? Tyler Guyton, is he?
Yep.
The left tackle. He's been horrible. And when TJ Watt sees him, I mean, that's licking your chops. So that's a big problem. They have no way to neutralize that pass rush. He's thrown a CD Lamb, and that's pretty much it. Dak, this is one of those games where, I don't think Pittsburgh's running away with anything. I don't think Pittsburgh's, winning by any sort of real margin. Their offense is not good enough to do that, Parsons or no Parsons. But defensively, I could see Dallas struggling to move the ball at all. I have this game being like a field goal game, one of those kick a lot of field goal games. You have 2 kickers in this game that, if the weather is okay, could be making 55, 60-yard field goals. And that's really where the points are coming from. Turnovers or defense creating good field position and kicking long field goals. But if these teams play field position, and Tomlin will definitely play the field position game, he'll punt from midfield instead of going for 4th and 2 for sure. McCarthy, this will be a tale of watching 2 coaches just kill the game one after another. But I don't see how Dallas can pass protect. And I know they can't run. So if that's the case, I could see Pittsburgh winning this game 16-9 and just kicking a whole bunch of field goals and winning just on playing field position, not allowing Dak to do anything, and kicking long field goals. Also, Pittsburgh's off a loss. You don't want to back Pittsburgh off a win. You want to back Pittsburgh off a loss. So I really like the Steelers in this game, and I'm hoping this line stays under 3. If this is 2.5, for sure, another game. And that's why there's a lot of games where I've said, complete pass, either enjoy the game, great game, like the Houston-Buffalo game or Cincinnati-Baltimore game. Enjoy those games, sit back and relax. And then the other games, like the Miami New England game where easy pass, sit back and don't even look at the TV. But this is but I do have I mentioned Washington. We talked about Arizona, the Giants. Steelers are another one. Highlighted immediately, thinking like this is probably going to make my card 2.5 or less. I don't see how I lay off that game, even if Parsons plays. If Parsons plays, okay, it's a lower scoring game, but I still don't see how Dallas moves the football.
No. Yeah, I don't either. And you're totally right about not betting on the Steelers after winning, especially when they're favored. Tomlin as a road favorite off a win is 15-30 against the spread in his career. just horrible. But yeah, off a loss for sure. I mean, I think the Steelers were not focused last week. Just didn't play their best. You had like Pickens doing stupid stuff, Fields fumbling, just running around like a madman. Like I don't know. It just didn't seem like their best game plan. I think they're going to have a much better game plan in this one.
If you're betting this game or watching this game, and it's a night game, so when you're betting an under, you want to wait because generally speaking, those lines go up before the games kick off. Now, I'm looking at 43 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at a 23-20 type of game as your max, kind of get you that push in that push range. I don't think this game is getting to 43. But again, it's a night game, so you never know. People lose on a Sunday, and they're going to parlay the favorite with the over or bet the over. To me, this is a game where I go into the game immediately, and I'm betting the first half under. And I'm going to probably get 21.5 would be my key target number. That's the price I'm looking for, 21.5. 20.5 would be acceptable too, but let me see if I can grab 21.5 pregame. And then the algorithm, if you're playing over-unders and you're playing live, the algorithm will calculate the spread divided by the minutes left in the half or, of course, the game. So they're dividing that over-under by 30 minutes. We all know that the first quarter in that situation is, let's say, 10.5 or 10 or 9.5, probably 10.5. And the second quarter is probably more like 13.5. I'm sorry. So if it's 21.5, it'll be 9.5 and let's say 12.5, something in that ballpark. So the first quarter is always going to be less than the second quarter, of course, because halftime comes up. There's an urgency at the end of the half to score. So what you do is you bet the under at 21.5. You wait a possession or 2 or 3. You get your punt. You get some runs. You get some hopefully no long plays, which a lot of teams are not getting long explosive plays anymore. And that over-under is dropping like a stone in the first 5-6 minutes of the game. If you don't like your position at 21.5 because maybe a turnover here and there, go bet the over 19.5 or go wait for 16.5 or 15.5. As that first quarter, that line is dropping because of the minutes played. You get a nice little middle, maybe take half your bet and come back with the over. But that's a lot of these night games, Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night games, where you start with that first half under pregame, wait 3, 4, 6 minutes. If that first drive, even if they drive 6-7 minutes for a field goal, and you see it, a lot of drives now are lengthier drives, 5-6 minute drives. That over-under is dropping. The only way that over-under goes up is on an explosive touchdown or a long pass play that ends up being, a red zone, and then all of a sudden you're scoring a touchdown, and it's 12:20 on the clock, and it's 7-0. It's like, wait a second, I have under 21.5. That's not good. Yeah. But you got that under 21.5. More than likely, if you don't like it, good. Go bet over 19.5 5 minutes later in middle. Because that 21.5, that's going to be the number. If the number is 43 or 42.5, your number is going to be 21.5 for the half. That's a great bet.
Yeah, that's definitely excellent advice.
Ask Andy about that about the live over-unders. See what he says.
I will on Thursday. Yeah, we'll see. Michael says, who's a good backup quarterback I get for Stafford and Keon Coleman?
Flacco.
Yeah, Flacco. Maybe you can get Geno Smith. Maybe, I don't know. Like, you have to find someone who really likes Keon Coleman to get anything. You could probably get someone on the waiver wire too. Just play matchups. Something you could do is look at the playoff schedule. Like if you're unless you're like dying to get someone now, but I know like just from best ball, I know like Atlanta has an easy playoff schedule. I know the Saints do. It won't help you, but I know Eagles, Redskins play each other week 17. So those are teams to target, not necessarily quarterbacks. You can't get those guys for what you have. But Arthur Smith versus Zimmer's checkers match. Checkers might be a little too advanced. Maybe shoot some ladders. So anyway, Monday night we have Saints and Chiefs. Chiefs are kind of just in shambles here with the receiving core, and the Chiefs, by the way, just never win by margin here.
Exactly.
They
That's it. That's the handicap.
exactly. Yeah, they win by 3 if they're favored by 5. If they're favored by 7.5, they win by 7. Like feels like they never get there unless it's playoff time and there's some urgency. But this is a team that's been around the block so many times, especially early in the year in non-conference games. Like, why would they try hard in this game? Just especially coming off a divisional win, just doesn't seem like just a great spot for them. So I think this has to be Saints or nothing here. And by the way, the Chiefs 4-0, but think about it, really. I mean, week 2 against the Bengals, they lose if Burrow doesn't fumble. Week 3 against the Falcons, they lose if Raheem Morris kicks a field goal in the penalty.
Or if the refs call PI in the back of the end zone on the last drive.
That's right. Yeah, there multiple ways they could have lost that game. Last week they
almost lost to Baltimore by a toe.
Yeah. And then week 4, last week against the Chargers, they played against a team, no tackles, no Joey Bosa, no Derwin James, Justin Herbert limping around. They were down 10-0. They won by 7. That was a game they could have lost. So this team has been very unimpressive. I think this line's too high. Looking at the metrics, the EPA numbers say the Chiefs should be -2. I don't know if that's quite correct because
that feels a little short.
Yeah, we have a 4-game sample size, so I don't think we have like all the numbers, but still, I think this line maybe should be like 3 or 3, maybe 3.5 at most. Like
I have this line 3.5, 4.
Okay, yeah, I think 5 is a little too high. I like the Saints here. I don't know if they went out right. It feels like this is a game where like Chiefs win 22-20 or something.
Exactly. I think I wrote 23-20.
Yeah.
Listen, you said it. 9 of their last 10 games, 1-score games. The only game that wasn't a 1-score game was the Miami game in the playoffs, where it was 40 degrees below zero.
Yep.
And that was a different scenario, so you can't even really count that. I think the spread's a little bit high. Kansas City has a bye next week, so they have a bye, then they play San Francisco. They're not and they don't really have a run game. I mean, they're running out Kareem Hunt right now. Carson Steele fumbles. That guy can't play running back. They don't have a guy to handle the ball. And they don't want Mahomes running around up by 7, up by 10 late in the game. They're going to run the football. They're going to give Kareem Hunt the football. And they're going to try to get out of Dodge with a win. They don't care if they win by 3. And Mahomes is amazing at running out the clock. If he has a 4-minute drive, a 6-minute drive, they're up 3-4 points, he will figure out a way to run out the clock, or the refs will help them run out the clock with a PI somewhere. Kelsey's obviously washed and certainly looks like he's washed, but he's making plays. And he last week, he have 6 catches, 8 catches. He's still going to get open, and he's going to get those 5-6 yard catches downfield. They're not going to run up the score on you. They'll probably trail at some point early. They'll come back and figure out a way to win. There's a massive coaching edge here, of course, between Andy Reid and Dennis Allen. It's Kansas City at night, so it's hard to go against Kansas City winning the game. But if they're up by 1, 2, 3, 4 points late, they will be able to run out the clock. If they're down 7 to 10 points second half, they'll figure out a way to score and possibly come back and win, but certainly it could be a toss-up. Saints +5, I mean, to me, again, one of those games where I don't know. I'm not good enough at handicapping these games to get off of that game. I do see actually Circa dropped it already because it was 5.5 and 5 before. Circa is now down to 4.5. Westgate's still at 5. So they're already dropping this number, which tells you exactly what we just said. At 5, 5.5, and just too many points.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So glad we're on the same page on the last game. Reed says, who would you go for in Survivor if he already used the Seahawks, Texans, Jets, and Niners? You mentioned that you like the Redskins. He's thinking Jaguars or Packers. Yeah, if you don't like the Browns at all, I think Redskins, you can go with them. Among Jaguars or Packers, I'd rather go Packers, even though they're.
You want to win your Survivor and live dangerously, you can go New England.
Yeah, that's one you wouldn't.
Bless the person who's picking New England or Miami in Survivor.
Oh, you know, someone is this week.
Someone is, yeah, for sure.
I imagine going into the year they didn't expect the Patriots to be on their card at all.
Packers is not a bad idea.
Yeah, that's why I would lean. Maybe the Reds again. If you really hate the Browns, I think Redskins are legit, or Packers. I would not go with the Jaguars, given
I wouldn't want part of that. I wouldn't want to get on the wagon.
Yeah, Peterson. If they quit on Peterson, that's the issue there. All
The
right.
good news, because eventually either you're going to see they quit on Peterson and you'll have a few weeks to bet against them,
Mhm.
and then eventually he'll get fired and you'll have a good week to bet on them.
Yep.
And that's just auto play. Peterson fired, you're betting them the next week. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can't wait. I thought initially that they were going to let him go for the whole season just because he's been coaching for so long and he's respected. But that
Unless they leave him in London.
Actually, I think it was Slew who commented that like, what if he's fired in between the two London games?
This is really a big week. If they go 0-5, I mean the season's over. The season's probably over already. But if they win this week and then go on their business trip to London, they can come back 3-4. And crazier things have happened. They can make a run.
Yep. Yeah. No,
this week is really their last shot.
Yeah,
I expect them to win this week. I really do. I mean, I'm not going to bet it. I'm not picking it. But that line moved up to 3 for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Flacco or not, I gun to my head, I would pick Jacksonville to win the game, but I would not. I would not advocate for a bet. I would not tell anybody to bet that because I've watched Lawrence sail balls over people's heads now every single week. If it rains, I've seen him drop the ball and just fumble. And I really would want no part of a team that people in the know seem to believe that they are quitting. So I guess we'll see this week.
Yeah, the Jaguars are the sharp side, but sharps don't always win. So let's keep that in mind. Let's see. You would still pick up Wicks over Fields with my starting quarterback being Purdy, back Carr and Tua on IR. Okay. So all right. So he's asking priorities here on waiver wire. I mean, Purdy's a good quarterback. I don't like. Yeah, I mean, you could use Fields, and then you have Carr, who's a great playoff schedule. I would rather have Wicks. I mean, you saw what he did last week, and he and Christian Watson play the same role. Like, if Watson's out, Wicks can just go nuts. I'd rather have Wicks than Fields, but it's pretty close, though. So, I don't know. If you don't feel comfortable with Purdy and Carr, I think you'll be okay. Plus, remember, they expect Tua to come back week 8, so that's something else to remember. Jack Del Rio's available. That he is. If they want him back, for sure.
Bill Belichick's available. Mike Vrabel's available. There's a couple of coaches out there who are available.
That's right. Yeah, maybe Belichick goes there. So, all right, Evan, it was great doing this with you. Do you have anything to plug or anything to say on the way out? Parting thoughts?
No, good luck to everybody. Be smart out there. Football is a crazy sport. When you think you figured it out, it goes the other way. So
that's true.
Never think you know what you're talking about because the very next week, and obviously these games, there's only 4 game sample size. We all had predictions and ideas coming into the season that some were right, some were wrong, but don't overreact to 1 game, 2 games, 4 games. Right now, maybe the craziest result of the season was Baltimore blowing a 10-point lead to Vegas and knocking me out of 2 out of my 5 survivors with a 10-point fourth quarter lead somehow, some way. So does that mean anything? It's 1 game. So there's not. Always remember that with the short season, with the short sample size, crazy things happen. Expect the unexpected in football, and enjoy the games.
Matt,
Walt, thank you so much for having me on. This was great.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on. Matt, last question: Survivor between San Francisco, Kansas City, and Washington. I'd go between those 3 at San Francisco for sure, right?
Yes, between those 3, San Francisco, and if you're in Circa Survivor, you can't use Kansas City because they're a team that plays on Thanksgiving and Christmas week.
That's right.
And you have to save those teams.
Yep, unless you save them for last year, like Christmas, and then they lose to the Raiders. But yeah, I agree. I think you want to save them. So thanks so much, guys, for watching and commenting. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, especially to John Sanders for the 411 super chat. Just really appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow with Kenny to discuss fantasy football. So you guys have any fantasy football questions, Kenny and I will be on tomorrow to answer them. Thursday, Andy's coming back after the Thursday night game. So like 15, 20 minutes after the Thursday game's over, we'll be live. And then Saturday, Tom will be on. So full schedule this week. Good luck, guys, with your bets if you don't listen to the rest of the shows this week. And yeah, Evan, once again, thanks so much for coming on. Just always love talking to you. So We'll be back tomorrow, and have a good night, guys.